We are live. What's up, everybody? We're live. Good to see everybody in the chat. A little bit of a longer wait. I plan on going at 9:30. Of course, there's always a gap, so we're here. I kind of had to hustle it up and hurry up. I was going to take a little bit more time, but we got breaking news. This is as of just about 26 minutes ago. This is out of the New York Times. Iran more live updates. Iran aimed at Bahrain and Kuwait, but the attacks were shot down or failed. The U.S. military said the U.S. launched what it called self-defense strikes in Iran. So this is very fresh. The article starts out by saying the U.S. military and Iran both reported a flurry of new strikes on Tuesday as Trump administration officials painted a murky picture of where diplomatic efforts stood to end the war. Pair that along with the article that we all got out of Axios that went viral yesterday. Every single news outlet in the world spoke about this. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "You are effing crazy" to Netanyahu in regards to the war in Lebanon. Now, how true is it? How much of this is used defensively to take the heat off of the United States and the fact that we cannot control Israel? Right, that's a large piece. So we'll talk about that. And then also Hasan Piker is banned from the United Kingdom. At least I think it's temporary. I don't think it's permanent. However, Hasan Piker and Cenk Uygur, who are two very prominent left-wing voices in the political space, have now been banned from the United Kingdom. And there has not been a reason that has been given or supplemented, but we can all take a guess it's because of their anti-Israel rhetoric. And so I spoke to Sneeko about this the other day, and a lot of people attacked me for my opinion in regards to Hasan Piker being subpoenaed because of his conspicuous connection with Cuba or him traveling to Cuba, whatever it was. And everybody was saying, Riyadh, Riyadh, this is a bad take. We should all unite, and there's overlapping interests on the left and the right, and if we can all get together on a couple things, then we should try to ignore everything else, even if it's super ideological. And I'll be as gracious enough to say I agree. However, there's a threshold, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. But I want to get into the Iran news because that's kind of breaking and pressing, and we've been farming Iran forever. And so I want to get into that because this article is fresh. I mean, I just barely got a chance to read it, so I'm going to read it with you guys for the first time here, and we're going to have a live reaction. We're going to go over the situation in Lebanon. Israel largely controls about 20% of Lebanon now, at least in the south. They took control of Beaufort Castle, which is a historic area that they had control of since the 80s, moving into 2000. It's been 26 years since Israel had any sort of occupation there in southern Lebanon, at least as deep as they have now. And so they're ramping up the offensive. They are working overtime to ensure that they can gain control south of the Litani River and obviously now at this point anywhere north. If you haven't been paying attention to the situation in the Middle East, remember October 7, 2023, the situation in Gaza and Israel, the whole war between Hamas and the IDF, whatever. But that also sparked up controversy in a war between Hezbollah in southern Lebanon and Israel. And that spanned all the way until November of 2024, and where there was a ceasefire and Israel pulled out of southern Lebanon south of the Litani River. And this came after the death of Hassan Nasrallah, who is the leader of Hezbollah. And so Israel ensured that they pulled out of southern Lebanon after they had significantly weakened the Iranian proxy. And now Benjamin Netanyahu, in the midst of the ceasefire, of course, and I've been telling you guys this for months. I've been telling you for months if you've been here, bank on Benjamin Netanyahu to agitate the problem every single time we seem to be close to a peace deal or at least a 60-day break in where we negotiate even further in regards to the enriched uranium and the war in Iran. Bank on Benjamin Netanyahu to try and agitate the matter in the middle and make it impossible for the United States to exercise diplomacy with Iran. Now, I'm not saying the United States is operating in good faith. We obviously aren't. Because we bombed Iran with no real provocation except for the fact that we bombed them because we knew Israel was going to strike them anyway, so we had to kind of be the big brother and step in. This is per the admittance of Marco Rubio in the first week of the war, and so that's not a conspiracy. Secretary of State said that himself. And we're actually going to react to him getting pressed today at Capitol Hill in now what seems to be the fourth month of this war. At least we're entering the fourth month of this war. And so that's going to be very juicy. I'm going to like to watch that a lot. And if we have time, we'll get to that. I can't say it's going to be the longest stream because I have work tomorrow morning and I'm on 2 hours of sleep. And not to do the whole like wah, but bro, I fell asleep last night at around 2-ish a.m., 3-ish a.m., and I just couldn't sleep. I like have a hard, some nights I knock out, I'm super tired, and then last night I just couldn't sleep. I know why. It's because I had like a Celsius at like 6 p.m. before the gym, and that screws up my sleep. I have tons of caffeine before going to bed. And, I fell asleep around 3 a.m. Bro, tell me why the fire alarm goes off in my building at like 5 a.m. And the fire alarm in these buildings, like when you had a fire alarm in high school, the noise is deafening. It's like horrible. Like it goes through your body. It shocks your body. And so I wake up to that. I don't even wake up. I don't even like jump up. I just wake up angry, bro. And so we go outside at like 5 a.m. in this cold, crisp air. And that wakes me up. So then I can't go back to sleep for work later on in the morning. I start at 8 and I lost so much sleep. So I was really, really tired today. Got back from work, skipped the gym, went to bed. Don't care. Okay. Sorry. I'm not David Goggins. Skipped the gym. And really, I'm going to get into everything now. But bro, like there is something to working out on no sleep. Don't do it. Like if you don't get at least 5 or 6 hours of sleep, just leave the gym for the next day. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like that. No, get in the gym, train anyways. Like I used to do that. I used to be like this brutalist, like I'm going to train regardless. Like I'm going to go put in that pain. But bro, like you literally are breaking your body when you do that. Like that's not good for you. I don't mean to sound like ChatGPT, but bro, it's like actually horrible for you. Like you think you're good because sometimes you're running on fumes, but you're like surprised at how efficient you are. You're like, oh, I don't feel that terrible. I didn't get much sleep, but I don't feel that terrible. Let me go to the gym. And you're on the second set, like, and you feel like you're about to die. You feel like you're about to throw up. You're nauseous. You feel like you had no carbs that day, like you drank no water. You feel dehydrated. You don't feel refreshed at all. You're tired. You have brain fog. Like, so training on no sleep really isn't it. And I used to be like an advocate for that. Like, hey, don't be a, pussy. Go to the gym, train. Like, who cares? Like, no one cares that you didn't get sleep. Sleep is for losers, which I still like to some degree agree with the fact that like you're not always going to get 7 or 8 hours. Like, it's not a perfect world. Get over it. But like if you're on 2 hours, 3 hours of sleep, just take the L. You're probably going to set yourself back further by actually training because your body is in such a weak state. You're like literally in a catabolic state. Just eat your protein, hit your number, hit your calories, go to bed. So I got out of work at 5. I took a nice nap until like 8 o'clock. I woke up at 8, like 8:15. And now I'm here an hour later firing up stream. I thought that I was going to have time to like get up at 7:30, sneak a little workout in, do a little cardio, and then get back. Because that's how I like to do things. And I realized I woke up at 7:30. I'm like, brother, it's cope. It's over. I'm going back to bed. So I went back to bed. But I'm here for the stream. I wanted to make sure that I actually made it to the stream. But my brother is on his way to Timcast, wherever that is. He's on his way to Timcast, so he's currently traveling. And he will be doing Timcast IRL. Or not Timcast IRL. What is it? Timcast what? Not IRL. Anyways, he's doing Timcast show tomorrow. I'm not sure what the topics are going to be. It'll probably be very juicy. They're probably going to talk about Hasan Piker and Cenk Uygur. They're probably going to talk about the situation in Lebanon, Trump and Netanyahu, Marco Rubio, maybe. I don't know if they're going to talk about this Capitol Hill hearing. So it's going to be really good. And we may react to that live on stream just depending on how the time works out for me. But you guys will have content today and tomorrow. So don't worry about that if you watch both of us. And I got the hoodie on, reppin' MGX. This is like a really nice fitting hoodie though. It's Nike, stitched on. No cheap shit. It's a good hoodie. Really nice. So check out the MGX store if you like it. This hoodie is tough. This is screen printed, I think, right? Is that what they call it? Screen printed? So, but yeah. Yeah, I had an energy drink at 6 p.m. I got to stop doing that, bro. I got to stop doing that. Because it really wrecks your sleep. I don't mean to sound like a wussy, sissy, like, bitch. But, if you need to be in bed by, like, 11 p.m., 12 a.m., 1 a.m. at the latest, and you're drinking caffeine, especially more than 200 milligrams at, like, 5, 6 p.m., you're probably going to wreck your sleep. And I think studies suggest that even if you get to bed, the sleep is not quality. You might get a good quantity of sleep. You might get that 7 hours right on the mark, but it's not going to be good sleep because the caffeine really sticks around in your body for a long period of time and interrupts those vital hours where you're resting and recharging. So it is what it is. I'm not going to give up caffeine. I don't drink coffee in the morning like that, only when I'm like at work in person, which is not every day. But I'm not a big caffeine guy. So like my only fix, like my only real time where I get to have caffeine is before the gym. And that's just like a ritual to me. Like I have to have caffeine before the gym. I don't have pre-workout because that's just like, bro, who actually still takes pre-workout in 2026? Like I can't. Makes you all itchy and shit. I loved it when I was younger. Now it's like, bro, grow up. Just have a little caffeine. And it's really not even physical energy. It's like it just gets the brain going. It makes you happy. Like for me, I'm so caffeine tolerant that all the caffeine does for me is bring me to baseline. Like I'm miserable. I have an energy drink. Now I'm slightly less miserable. Now I can go work out. So yeah, I'll have like a Celsius or I'll have a C4. I've never had an Alani. Monster's not strong enough. Monster's got like what, 180 milligrams? Monster's trash. I know my brother drinks Monster. Monster's garbage. It's juice. Does nothing for me. Any energy drink I have has to have at least 200. Maybe for like if I'm doing a show, I'll have a Monster, I guess, right? Because Monster is not as strong. Because I had a Celsius one time before I did the stream, and I was like, I was too jittery. I noticed. So I guess I'm not that tolerant. But anyways. Yeah, going to be a really good stream. A lot to talk about. And I'm going to like go into a little bit of detail as to my opinion on the whole Hasan Piker thing and Cenk Uygur. Because a lot of people attacked me the other day for my opinion. Me and Sneeko spoke about it. So we'll start with Iran. Because if I go into it, I'm never going to stop. So we'll start with Iran. And I have a super chat. So before we do that, let me read the super chat. We'll get right into the news. David Goggins asked me to donate this for him. I don't think I have to relay. You know what he said. LOL, W Riyad, W Myron. Yeah, thanks. Now, I mean, I get it. Look, for Goggins, it's all about the mindset. Like, he doesn't care about the gains per se. He's training because it makes him tougher mentally. He's training because the next person won't train. For him, it's like I did that thing, which is good. And that's how I am to some degree too. But it's like, you got to pick and choose your battles. You're on 2 hours of sleep. Your sleep unexpectedly was interrupted. Couldn't go back to bed. Long 8-hour workday. You can go train. You're just not going to like make any gains, bro. Like it is what you're not going to be strong. You're not going to make gains. You're going to set yourself back. So anyways, regardless, let's go over this article. So this is as of 40 minutes ago. Oops, Riyadh, where are you? Hey. So this is as of 40 minutes ago. And this is out of New York Times. Iran war live updates. Iran targets neighbors as U.S. condemns aggressive strikes. So we'll just get straight into it. The U.S. military and Iran both reported a flurry. Am I muted? No, I'm not. The U.S. military and Iran both reported a flurry of new strikes on Tuesday as Trump administration officials painted a murky picture of where diplomatic efforts stood to end the war. U.S. CENTCOM reported that Iran had launched missiles and drone strikes on two regional neighbors, Kuwait and Bahrain, and on civilian mariners transiting nearby waters. Several failed in flight, it said, and others were intercepted. Iran, too, said it had waged attacks. Its Islamic Republic Guards Corps said the country had targeted the headquarters of the United States Fifth Fleet in Bahrain and the U.S. vessel it identified as the Penaya. CENTCOM, saying it was responding to aggressive Iranian behavior, also said the U.S. had conducted strikes on Iranian military ground control stations on Qeshm Island off the coast of Iran. Iran cited the Qeshm strikes as grounds for its own attacks. The skirmishing came on a day when Lebanese and Israeli officials met in Washington on Tuesday for a new round of U.S.-mediated talks on ending the war in Lebanon, even as Israel launched new strikes in the southern part of the country against the Iranian-backed group Hezbollah. That war is closely linked to the one in the United States and Israel have waged war against Iran, Hezbollah's main sponsor. Appearing before the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations on Tuesday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that an interim truce with Iran could happen today, it could happen tomorrow, it could happen next week, but there was no guarantee that such a deal will be acceptable to the Senate or acceptable to the American people. And it's like, how many times are we going to hear this? This is complete and utter bullshit. How many times are we going to say, it looks like we're about to get a deal, we're right on the cusp, don't worry. It's all bullshit. And I'll tell you why. It's because Netanyahu really has the cards, not us. Because he has the ability to start the war back up by hitting southern Lebanon for, at this point, no good reason. But anyways, Mr. Rubio noted in his congressional testimony that the war, which has wiped out much of Iran's leadership and infrastructure, has complicated diplomacy, with messages being exchanged in writing through intermediaries and replies taking days. And he insisted that the United States is not offering to grant two of Iran's chief demands, relief from U.S. sanctions and release of frozen funds, in return for reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has insisted that any peace deal must include Lebanon, but Mr. Netanyahu has voiced his determination to press on in a war against Hezbollah that has killed thousands of Lebanese, left extensive physical destruction, and battered the country's already weak economy. He said on Monday that he had ordered attacks on an urban area that is a Hezbollah stronghold on the outskirts of Beirut, the Lebanese capital. But under pressure from Mr. Trump, he paused that assault while continuing the offensive farther south. The Israeli military issued a new evacuation order on Tuesday for Nebatih, or Nebatih in Arabic, I believe it is, one of southern Lebanon's largest cities, which has been heavily bombarded in recent days. The Lebanese government has been negotiating with Israel in an attempt to stop the war, but it does not obviously control Hezbollah. We know they're two separate factions, which is both a militant group and a political party. The government said on Monday that it had received the word that Hezbollah was prepared to accept a ceasefire, but Hezbollah itself has made no public statement as of yet. So that's as of right now. Look, the long and short of it is that as long as the situation persists in southern Lebanon, we're not going to get any sort of peace deal, period. And this is why I say Benjamin Netanyahu has all the cards. And it's impossible for Donald Trump to seize control of the situation until he can control Benjamin Netanyahu. And we know that because Iran had seemed somewhat receptive to hopefully a long-term ceasefire that would eventually lead to the next step of a peace deal. They were receptive to it. They were communicating with Donald Trump throughout the entire month of April, where strikes had largely paused or stopped. You know, we had some strikes on Qasem Island and Bandar Abbas, and obviously we hit some Iranian infrastructure, and in return they drove some Navy destroyers out of the Strait. And so it was a bit of a rambunctious month, but it was nothing in comparison to March. March was a month of hell and war and complete bombardment and air domination by the United States. Air superiority, whatever you want to say, whatever Pete Hegseth was saying. However, now it's gotten to the point where Donald Trump is, and I've always been saying this, he's a little bit more desperate for a ceasefire. He's a little bit more desperate for things to slow down and kind of calm down. And why? That's because the global economy is suffering. The American economy is going to suffer. Now news outlets and oil experts are reporting that we might have gas shortages in September, or gas is going to continue to stay expensive until 2028, 2029. A lot of people are saying there's going to be a delayed effect of the global economy coming back to baseline after a ceasefire is even agreed upon by all parties, Israel, Iran, and the United States and Lebanon. And so we have a situation where even if Donald Trump somehow miraculously puts a cap on this mess that he started, this can of worms that he opened up, even if he puts a cap on it, the economy is still going to suffer for a great while longer. And that's not even to add to the fact that intelligence had said it's going to take a while to clear out these alleged mines in the Strait of Hormuz that Iran had planted. So where does this leave us? This leaves us in a position where we have no power, effectively. We have no escalation dominance. And honestly, we lost escalation dominance ever since the ceasefire had started because Iran was controlling the Strait of Hormuz the entire time and they're tolling ships. But now this gives Benjamin Netanyahu a lot more power than he had previously, because he didn't have much grounds to do what he wanted to do in southern Lebanon and eradicate Hezbollah influence, quote, Hezbollah influence. For as long as he wanted to do it, he wasn't able to do it because of obviously global condemnation and the fact that his hands were tied with the Gaza conflict. From October 2023 until November 2024, Israel was fighting like a 6, 7, and 8 front war. We'll get serious. They were fighting a multi-front war with several different nations. They were fighting a media war. And so for Israel, it was a little bit tough to focus on their long-term goals, one of those being the annexation of southern Lebanon. And I'm going to be straight up about it. And since the early 80s, that has been the goal. And that is why Hezbollah has largely formed up to be this resistance group that they are now, funded by Iran, the Iranian proxy, to not only fend off the Zionist entity, right, not only to fight Zionism, right, but it's also to defend southern Lebanon. But the IDF has had no hesitation, and they've been pretty aggressive ever since the beginning of April, or really since March, but now April they've ramped up a lot. On April 7th, a ceasefire was agreed upon between the United States and Iran for an indefinite period of time, at least for the foreseeable future until they can agree on some stipulations in regards to what either side wants, and they both made maximalist demands, which is why we're still in limbo with these peace talks. But Benjamin Netanyahu said, I don't have much time. While these countries are still technically at war, there's a temporary pause in the secession. Let me go ahead and bomb southern Lebanon. And I believe on April 7th or April 8th, the morning of April 8th, if my memory serves me correctly, Israel hit southern Lebanon in southern Beirut, or a suburb just south of Beirut, which is a quote-unquote Hezbollah stronghold, a Shia majority city, with 100 plus airstrikes. Killed several civilians, but had boasted throughout the month of April in their bombing onslaught against Lebanon and their attacks in the IDFs on the ground, or the IDF soldiers on the ground, that they are eradicating Hezbollah leaders and eradicating the influence. In turn, obviously, Lebanon is suffering as a result. And so I just want to say prayers out to Lebanon. A lot of people don't really talk about this. It's always free Palestine. And of course it is free Palestine, free Gaza, free Palestine. The Palestinian people deserve their sovereignty. But at the same time, also like free Lebanon, bro. Lebanon has been subject to so much Israeli violence since the 80s. And there have been pauses, but they've received the most aggressive strikes, the most aggressive attempts at annexation, and the infringement upon their borders. They've been dealing with this in doses ad nauseum for several decades now. And this is the same story written a little bit differently, but on its face it's the same thing. Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to crack Hezbollah. He is trying to seize control. He is trying to draw the lines differently. He's drawing the yellow lines above the Litani River. He wants to take control. And right now, the IDF has taken a large portion of control, in which of the likes we haven't seen since 2000. They just seized the territory of the Beaufort Castle, which overlooks the Litani River. And they told villagers just local, I think a little bit northeast, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember my Lebanese geography, but they have now told several Lebanese locals to vacate their homes. And so they're already displacing more Lebanese people on top of the millions that have already had to leave their homes in the south. All of these villages across the south, many of which are Christian, by the way, or have a respectable Christian population. And it's been difficult for Lebanon to really balance between this because Lebanon doesn't necessarily have the strongest government. They don't have a particularly strong economy. They're not rich. They're a decently stable country. They're not anywhere near a first world country. The only thing that they have that has kept them afloat despite Israeli aggression is actually Hezbollah. And so now Israel is fighting Hezbollah in the name of a war on terror. And so it's like, okay, but you also just like killed almost 100,000 people in the bombing campaign against Gaza. So what are you? Are you not a country of terror as well? And this is the same situation we saw Tucker Carlson deal with some Israeli the other day. I didn't even get a chance to react to that. Maybe if we have time today, we probably won't have time today. Who am I kidding? But Tucker Carlson was saying, you know, Israel's a terrorist state. How can you call Hezbollah and the proxy groups terrorists when you don't admit that Israel's a terrorist state? And that's the thing. They always omit that. But this is a situation that is going to hold Donald Trump in a chokehold until he is able to put a cap on the war and tell them to stop. Now, Donald Trump is allegedly saying, and he's telling Axios and he's telling all these mainstream news outlets, don't worry, I told Bibi Netanyahu stop and I told Hezbollah stop. They're not going to keep fighting at each other. They're not going to keep shooting each other. Didn't you tell them that in the beginning of April? Haven't you been having persistent conversations with Benjamin Netanyahu, begging him to just pause his war in Lebanon until you can figure out what you're doing in Iran? He has not listened to you. He will never listen to you. Donald Trump listens to Netanyahu. Netanyahu does not listen to Donald Trump. And I don't mean to do like the whole Riyadh. I know we get it. Like this is super simple, but this is important to highlight. Donald Trump gets rid of Thomas Massie in unison with the Israel lobby. Donald Trump starts a war in Iran because Benjamin Netanyahu begged him to, obviously. And this is what the whole IC community is reluctant to admit. That's currently in legislation or in power. That's why Tulsi Gabbard stepped down. The director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, stepped down because she was likely telling Donald Trump, this is stupid. And she was telling her entire community, because she's in control of all of the intelligence, there is no threat that we face in Iran. And as a result, she was likely blackballed by Donald Trump. Trump probably told her, look, you got until midterms, get the fuck out of the administration. She probably wasn't a part of meetings anymore. She was blacklisted. She was scrutinized. She had no more power in Washington, at least little of what was left. And so for her, she just stepped down before the Trump ship had actually sunk. And it's on its way to sinking because of shit like this. And think about this. They released this story and people get hyped up and they go, yo, Trump spazzed on Netanyahu. It's like, bro, this does nothing. This is actually really bad. A U.S. president, we are the strongest country in the world. A U.S. president is begging the prime minister of Israel to stop doing something that he has continuously asked him to stop doing for months. Back in October of last year, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump were pressed about the situation in the West Bank. They were asked this question several times. J.D. Vance on the tarmac, I always remember, and I bring this up. He said, we are not going to allow Israel to annex the West Bank. That is going to continue to be our goal in the Middle East. We will ensure that Palestinian sovereignty remains in the West Bank. We will ensure that Israeli aggression ramps down. We are on top of the matter. We're controlling it. Don't worry. When in actuality, the situation in the West Bank only got worse after the Trump administration had started. And this is what it is. It's like, I'm so sick and tired of all of the magatards. I read the comments, I read the tweets, and it's making me crash out. Donald Trump was flirting with the idea of bombing Moscow. He was telling Vladimir Zelensky, he was telling the president of Ukraine, I think at some point last year when he was first elected, like, can you bomb Moscow? Do you think if we gave you weapons, could you bomb Moscow? Trump is a psycho. He's effectively a warmonger. Like he's doing exactly everything of the opposite as to what he promised when he ran in 2024. He has not done anything in the situation in Ukraine. The Gaza situation is actually really bad right now. They're still bombing beaches. They're still bombing Gaza, eradicating Hamas influence, whatever that means at this point, because I thought Hamas was done for. And now they're going crazy on southern Lebanon. And here's the thing with Israel. At any point in time, there's always focused aggression in one direction. If it's not Gaza, it's Lebanon. If it's not Lebanon, it's the West Bank. If it's not the West Bank, it's Lebanon. Or it's all three at the same time and a little bit of Iran. Throw a little hint of Iran. Sprinkle that over. But we don't have to focus too much on Iran because the United States is spending $20 to $50 billion fighting our war for us. And so people see this article by Axios where it says Trump tells Netanyahu you're fucking crazy and they think there's hope. No, that's actually really bad. That's actually really bad. And I believe they did this in 2024 as well with Joe Biden, or 2023. At some point a few years ago, they said that Joe Biden was yelling at Netanyahu. This is what they always say, bro. And it's the same thing with Obama. Obama was condemning the West Bank settlements, which is good. Like, hey, that's a start. But they're not doing anything. They're not actually changing any legislation. They're not actually pulling control away from Israel. And here's the problem of it all. Remember, this is something that everybody seems to forget. Remember a couple weeks ago, Benjamin Netanyahu sat down with 60 Minutes, and he says he wants to draw down the American financial support to zero. This is out of CBS News here. I don't know if you guys have forgotten about this, and I'm going to draw out a larger point. Netanyahu says he wants to draw down to zero for the American financial support, and we reacted to the interview. I actually got copyrighted for some of it, so maybe you can't find all of it, but you know, he was talking about how effectively the long and short of it, I'm not going to read through all of this, but he said, I don't want to rely on the United States for financial support anymore. And why is that? The long-term goal, and this is why this article is actually demoralizing, the long-term goal of the Zionist regime in Israel is to not have to depend on the United States anymore, because increasingly every single day, the United States is becoming more and more anti-Israel. Do you think Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't notice that? Do you think Ben Gvir doesn't notice that? Do you think all of these donors in the United States don't notice that? They all know that. They all see where the wind is blowing. Now they're doing anything they can to try and silence it, to try and suppress it, to try and stop it, but it's not going to work when millions and millions of people are against you. There is strength in numbers, and that's obvious today. It's kind of become the case where you have the Harvard protests, you have these students protesting at big Ivy League colleges, and they're being blackballed from institutions. They're being blackballed from very powerful jobs that they could attain after going to these Ivy Leagues, which, by the way, the purpose of these Ivy League schools is to get really prestigious jobs. Looks good on the resume. And you got people like Bill Ackman making a list and writing them all down top to bottom. You got Canary Mission blackballing people, blacklisting people from life. And it's like, bro, this is the Trump administration's America. This is America under the Trump administration. We also live in a surveillance state. Flock cameras everywhere. Have you heard about that? Reading license plates, picking up patterns as to what you're doing. Yeah, it helps with security and crime. I agree. I think that's actually a benefit of it. But it seems like Donald Trump, this really traditional conservative president, has nothing to say about it, has literally nothing to say about it. All of these AI cameras being utilized to like effectively spy on us. And so they have all of our information in a database already. Trust me, I just went through the airport and got through with clear, past the security line. I mean, I'm looking into a camera and I have to put my fingerprint down to sign up. Like, they have all of our information, but now you have an AI system to actually go through all of it and regulate it and distinguish differences and patterns and discern as to who could be a threat and who's not a threat. Hasan Piker, Cenk Uygur are being banned from the United Kingdom. This is Trump's world. You know, people are going to say, oh, you're blaming Trump for... Trump's not helping. God forbid you're trying to fight for a visa. You say free Palestine, goodbye, you're getting deported. What in the world? Whatever happened to free speech? All of these conservatives champion free speech. And by the way, conservatives are good about disagreeing with somebody on the sake of free speech. What do you always hear from the right? Every single time from the right, all you hear is, I don't agree with that guy, but he should be allowed to say that. My brother says that all the time. And actually, that doesn't even benefit him. He's attacked largely for it. My brother is a big champion of free speech. Even if somebody's talking negatively about anything that he may have a vested interest in, he will say, look, I don't agree with that guy. Maybe he'll say, I hate that guy. But my brother will always highlight the fact that he is exercising his First Amendment right to say whatever he wants to say. And all of these traditional conservatives seem to echo a similar idea, at least the non-crazy Zionist ones. Charlie Kirk was one. He was a Zionist shill, but he championed free speech. He invited people to talk about Israel on his panel, increasingly so before he was assassinated. And you know, this has always been an idea from the right. Allow the left to talk. Even if we don't disagree with them, we must debate these ideas. We must bring it to the table and eradicate them. We must beat them. We must be intellectual. And that's some of the semblance from the right. A lot of people on the right are dumb, but that's a great idea. And you look at the left, and that doesn't exist at all. That doesn't exist at all. And you look at the Trump administration, that doesn't exist at all. God forbid you like Donald Trump and you say free Palestine. Maybe you go to like one Palestine protest. Now you're on a Fed watch list. Now you're on a terrorist watch list. You didn't wear any keffiyeh. You didn't say anything extreme. You didn't show any support for Hamas. You just show sympathy for dead children. Now you're getting deported from the United States. So what's conservative about the Trump administration exactly? Because last time I checked, it seems like Israel is just running the country. Thomas Massey's a patriot. Thomas Massey votes against the big, beautiful bill because he's against Donald Trump's support for foreign aid. Him and Donald Trump had a falling out. That was the rumors out of Washington and all this stuff. And Thomas Massey is always going against foreign aid. By the way, not only to just Israel, to Egypt, to other countries. He's never been a fan of foreign aid in general. And he's scrutinized and ostracized. And Donald Trump destroys him, reprimands him on Truth Social, and says he's not a patriot. He's a piece of shit. He gets all his boomer base to go out and vote for him. Kentucky's 4th congressional district has a median age of around 48 or 49 years old. Trump rallies up the boomers. The Israel lobby spends about $15 million against Thomas Massey, and they kick his ass out of Congress. And you're going to sit here and say Donald Trump is a half-decent president, at least the border's closed? How low is the bar, dumbass? The border should always be closed. That's why it's a border. It's a border. So, like, I'm just getting, I don't want to say the hate is getting to me, but, like, people don't get it, bro. People don't get it, man. And I guess I'll start with Lebanon, but this brings me to the situation with Hasan Piker. And my brother tweeted this. I'll go ahead and pull this up. And I got annoyed the other day, but let me break this tweet down for you guys before I get into it. And my bad. Let me read some super chats. I woke up from my nap in a bad mood, bro. How about 5-hour energy? Those don't work for me at all. W show. Yeah, bro. It's all a scam. It's like, is there even caffeine in it? Thank you so much for the super chat. And then Michaka says, 07. Thank you so much, my friend. So anyways, let's take a look at this tweet by my brother. And we'll get into the Hasan Piker situation. So he says, it's interesting how Hasan Piker and Cenk Uygur just got banned from the UK for criticizing Israel. The ones pushing it, the Labour Party left wing and the Jewish lobby. Wild how the left never faced real censorship until they touched Jewish power or Zionism. Yet these guys still refuse to call out. Okay, we'll be careful with that because of the fact that we're on YouTube. But you can read what he's saying here. And if you're listening, you can probably take a guess as to what he's saying. And he's been talking about this on X for a little bit now. There's another tweet here, if I can find it. But he pretty much said it's super interesting now how, Hasan Piker and Cenk Uygur are getting a taste of their own medicine. So here it is. The left wing is finally seeing what it's like to be a right-wing creator. The left almost never has to deal with censorship, demonetization, or removal from major platforms. They got a small taste of censorship, and now Cenk Uygur and Hasan the Hun, which is Hasan Piker, are losing their minds. And he quote-tweeted Cenk Uygur. He said, "The British government is saying they're banning me because I am a serious risk to the public order due to my criticism of Israel. They say that my charge that Israel controls the American government through donations to 94% of Congress while factual is anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic nonetheless. Don't know if facts will soon be banned in Britain. They already are. I didn't get banned for criticizing the UK, but for criticizing Israel. They broke the irony record by saying it was because I said Israel might control other governments. I wonder if they're going to ban themselves. I think about it. If I had said that the Israeli government controls the British government so thoroughly that they'll ban someone from coming to the UK for criticizing Israel, they would have said that that was an anti-Semitic statement. This is absolutely, I don't even know what that word is. Confiscate, whatever the hell that means. And regardless, this is what I want to go over. Like, let me tell you guys something. I was in Los Angeles the other day with my brother at UCLA for the college debates hosted by Uncensored America. And I was incredibly stressed throughout the entire situation. And if you're smart, you know where I'm about to go here. I was incredibly stressed throughout the entire situation. I was worried that somebody may jump over the barricade and attack my brother. Somebody may get a funny idea. I don't even want to go into details because of how sick what you know I'm about to say is. And so, you know, the people that disagree with my brother are obviously people who are largely on the left, maybe some people on the right, whatever. But I mean, you have a LAPD helicopter in the air to protect my brother. You know, you have LAPD drones in the air to ensure that no crazy guy with a sniper rifle is on a roof looking to blow his head off. I'm not kidding, like maybe 50 to 100 police officers, security personnel, campus police, all around the tent protecting us. And so God bless them, shout out to them. But this speaks to a greater point. The left is crazy. Why is that necessary? And so the other day, me and Sneeko were speaking about this on stream, and Sneeko said, what do you think about the whole Hasan Piker situation? If you didn't know, Hasan Piker was subpoenaed by the DOJ because of this weird foreign relation he has, conspicuous ties to Cuba, right? Whatever. And Sneeko said, you know, I think this is tyrannical. We don't agree with Hasan Piker. You know, Hasan Piker attacks us, but at the end of the day, we should protect free speech. If they're going for Hasan Piker, they're going to come for us. And largely to that, I mean, I agree. But let me draw something out that's very important for people to understand. And I got attacked for this, so I'm going to respond to it. I'm going to double down, actually, because I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna double down on it. Remember when my brother got canceled from everything? The ADL came from my brother. They took away all his platforms. He does not have an Instagram page. They banned him from Meta. YouTube attacks him. All of these mainstream platforms attack him. Twitch does not allow him to have a platform. Only Hasan Piker can have a platform on Twitch. My brother is attacked by Media Matters. All of these big different organizations all went after him. And as a result, he's been blacklisted and canceled from several different mainstream platforms that he would utilize to monetize his voice and awaken the masses and do his content creation, which is his right. He's never called for political violence, ever. He's never suggested political violence. And even against the people my brother vehemently disagrees with, he has never called for any sort of violence, not even vaguely. Now let's think about the other side. Let's think about the other side of the fence. Hasan Piker has a record that I'm about to show you of straddling the line of literally calling for violence upon people, saying that the United States kind of deserved 9/11, and he's also saying that the streets will fill with capitalist blood. This is a communist. This is a far leftist. If my brother got blacklisted from everything, if my brother, God forbid, was attacked or injured, God forbid, Hasan Piker wouldn't care. He wouldn't condemn it. He doesn't care about anybody on the right. And so when people like Sneeko say, we need unification between the left and the right, I totally agree. I totally agree. But Hasan Piker also always attacks Sneeko and always shits on Sneeko and calls for cancellation of Sneeko. He calls Sneeko a Nazi. And that's a crazy thing to call somebody. Obviously, we all joke about it, but to call somebody a Nazi is to call them a fascist and to get them blacklisted from the world. You know, that green lights somebody in an indirect way for attack. Physically on the street, like we saw, Sneeko gets punched in the face. Hasan Piker looks at that kind of stuff and he doesn't care and he laughs. So this guy is like kind of heartless, and everybody's getting mad at me because when Sneeko asked me what I thought about Hasan Piker, I said, I'm indifferent. It's too bad he got subpoenaed. When he gets banned from the UK, I said, oh, that's too bad. How does it feel? And everybody's like, Riyadh, what the hell, dude? Like, bro, you can't say that. I'm sorry. If something ever happened, God forbid, to my brother, Hasan Piker wouldn't care. Why should I care that he's banned from the United Kingdom? So if you go back to my video where I was reacting to the Hasan Piker situation, I wasn't even celebrating. I wasn't jumping up and down, like hyped up that Hasan Piker can't go to the UK. I wasn't like super emphatic about it. I wasn't happy about it. And I was actually highlighting, and I said this to Sneeko, this is scary because people on the left are now being canceled for anti-Israel rhetoric, for saying the truth. And so what the hell is going to happen to people on the right, especially if we live in a democratically controlled country after 2028, which is likely at this point because the Republican Party and the GOP have lost all credibility from starting 5 wars in the Middle East. And so, like, you know, you think one war, I'm being dramatic. And so, you know, you think about all of this and it gets pretty concerning. And then people call for unification. Cenk Uygur, I don't really have a problem with, right? And he's attacked my brother, I'm pretty sure. But Cenk Uygur, I don't have a problem with. But like, you know, people say unification. Look, there's overlapping interests from the right and the left at this point, and that's become obvious. But people think like Hasan Piker is acceptable, like he's some wholesome libertarian like Dave Smith. This guy is an extremist. He's a communist. He's a socialist. He's a Marxist, whatever you want to call him. Hasan Piker does not believe in anything American. And I'm not like a bleeding hard patriot with an F-150, but, you know, I like America. I am patriotic. And when people like Hasan Piker have a platform on Twitch, and he's the only political streamer on Twitch who doesn't get canceled, and he calls for violence all the time, and now he's crying that he can't go to a country because he talks about Israel in somewhat of a negative tone here and there, and he's usually right about those things, and he's right about the Iran war. Now it's like everybody's telling me, Riyadh, don't get mad at Hasan Piker. Riyadh, this is a time for unification. It's like, not with that. Not with that. So I'm not celebrating. I'm not tweeting like, lock him up. I'm not saying any of that. But how am I going to be reprimanded for not sympathizing with a guy who would not blink twice if something bad happened to my brother for his political views? These niggas go to the club in Miami back in the beginning of the year around February, and a song is played. No one even knows who played the song. They know who plays the song. No one knows who played the song. And as a result, the mayor of Miami comes out and releases this public letter. Every single mainstream media news outlet says, these Nazis were in a club playing a song, and Hasan Piker jumps on it. He runs with the mainstream rhetoric instead of saying, hey, it's just a song, it's free speech. So like, exactly what does Hasan Piker represent? He represents a fringe amount of political violence in some vague way, and he promotes cancellation. And so now we're like supposed to sympathize with him? Like, that shit had me so annoyed. I look at the comments in my video and everybody's like, El Riyadh. Like, bro, what? Like, what? Sneeko asked me, he said, yo, what do you think about the situation with Hasan Piker? I said, hey, you know, it sucks. I'm not celebrating it. But like, that guy is not our friend. That guy is not our friend, bro. He hates us. So, and like, I love Dave Smith. Dave Smith doesn't agree with like my brother on everything. But Dave Smith is based. And I don't care if you're a libertarian. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a leftist. It's totally your prerogative to have your own political view. I don't like an echo chamber. Matter of fact, if you watch me and you disagree with what I was saying, that's totally fine. I don't expect everybody to watch me and go, I agree with every single thing Riyadh says. That's fine. I don't want an echo chamber. But like, you have to be realistic here. My brother has been canceled off the face of the planet. And people like him and Cenk don't ever bat an eye at it or ever try and help him out. Don't ever try and say, hey, you know, this is like, and now we're supposed to like feel some sort of way. Nah, bro. Nah, bro. You know, my brother responded to the tweet and he says, welcome to being a right-wing content creator. Sucks, doesn't it? So, you know, I just was annoyed about that. I'm not trying to go crazy, even though I kind of just did. But, you know, Hasan Piker is borderline an extremist. We have to draw that distinction between him and somebody like Dave Smith. Dave Smith is like a wholesome libertarian. Joe Rogan, like, people think they fall into the same category. Like, no. So, like, it's important to draw out that distinction. And I was just so frustrated with the response that I received after that video. Not because people were disagreeing with me, but because, like, people are missing the big point. You know, Do you guys really understand the extent that my brother's been canceled to? And like, it should be infuriating for you because I'm not trying to rip on Hasan Piker. I'm not that invested, but like, I have to draw out the distinction here. These are some clips of things that he said over the years. All I typed in was Hasan Piker compilation, mind you.
No. America deserved 9/11, dude. Fuck it. I'm saying it. We fucking totally brought it on ourselves, dude. Holy shit.
Every type of armed resistance against both the settlers and also the Israeli occupying force in the West Bank. Doesn't matter if it's your favorite podcasters like Wife that participate in these raids. The violence that the Palestinians engage in an act of resistance against this illegal occupying force is literally legal, definitionally legal. If you cared about...
Well, that's not a call to violence. He's talking about resistance, which we all support. If somebody's being attacked, if somebody's right to exist is being attacked, then obviously they're going to resist.
Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott. Okay? The moment is clear. You got to sick like the ACP guys on him. Okay, that's it. You got to get one of those like Haz al-Dink type motherfuckers to just like eat his ass alive, you know?
874 Bellevue Drive, and I'm gonna kill you with my AR-15. Like, that's the type of messages they were leaving in this dude's office, and he's resigning.
And this is like 20 minutes long. Try to find a
If
shorter
you have...
one. But there was one that was pretty bad.
It's just not transit at all.
Yeah, kill them. Kill those motherfuckers and murder those motherfuckers in the street. Let the streets...
I don't know if this is taken out of context, but it's like, in what context would you say this?
Soak in their fucking red capitalist bloods, dude.
Left-wingers, liberals, you need to be fucking showing your opponent's guts on there, okay? You need to be gutting them. You need to be shanking these motherfuckers.
Look at the hate. Look at the hate. Who talks like this? Like, when was the last time you saw somebody on the right talking about the left like this? And then people say the right and the left is not real. No, bro, it's actually very real. Because look at the people who oppose our views. They don't just say, oh, we oppose our views, but we all unify for a greater purpose. No, this is what they're saying. They can't gather together and hold hands and lock arms and say, you know what, our country's controlled. Let's set aside our differences. No, they're saying gut them out. Like, why is he... This is not passion. This is like extremism. And you can try and mask it as passion. But it's like, this is the guy who's crying. He's banned from the UK. And then my brother plays a song in a club and he's globally condemned for it. And this guy's running free saying these things. So.
And letting their intestines just ride on stage. What the fuck is this shit, man? Slice them up.
If you cared about Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, you would kill Rick Scott. Okay? You got to sick like the ACP guys on him. Okay, that's it. You got to get one of those like Haz al-Dink type motherfuckers to just like eat his ass alive, you know?
I don't know what he's laughing at there.
Still good. Still good. Yo.
And like, look, we can go all day, but it's no secret. Hasan Piker does not care about anybody who has similar interests to us or like me or Sneeko. And then that's part of the reason too, bro. I'm defending my friends, you know? And I was telling Sneeko that. I'm like, yo, this guy hates you, bro. This guy hates you. This guy could care less if you were blown up into the sea or blown up into the air. He could care less if you were shot. He could care less if you were punched, which you were. He won't condemn that. And if you will, he'll do it reluctantly. Like, doesn't care about my brother. Doesn't care about the fact that my brother has actually never even attacked him like that. So I really got to nip that in the bud. I know we spent some time on that, but I really got to go hard on that. People are all crying saying, oh, it's not banger, it's not banger. It's like this crazier shit happens to people on the right all the time, and no one bats an eye. No one bats an eye. You know, if they can't go to the UK, my brother sure as hell probably can't either if he tries to. He'll get denied and turned around just like Cenk Uygur was. So I get it. This is not a good sign for anybody. We don't want Hasan Piker to be canceled from the United Kingdom because of the fact that he criticizes Israel. I'm with him on that, but I'm not about to take his side and hold hands with him like he's not parading the fact that my brother is somebody he's not, which is calling him like a Nazi, fascist, psycho extremist. When he's making tongue-in-cheek jokes, when he's like, bro, that's not our boy. That's not our boy, bro. You know what I mean? You talk about Dave Smith You talk about Cenk Uygur, we can talk about that. You talk about Hasan Piker, he's too far gone. So, it is what it is, bro. And this is an article out of NBC just for all the context, because this comes after his subpoena, so he's really under a lot of heat right now. The progressive political commentators Cenk Uygur and Hasan Piker said Monday they had been barred from entering the United Kingdom to speak at events. Uygur, who hosts the YouTube series The Young Turks, and his nephew Piker, who broadcasts his commentary on the video platform Twitch, said on social media they had been blocked because of their views about Israel. In a statement, the British Home Office or Interior Ministry said travel authorization for these individuals had been cancelled as their presence in the UK may not be conducive to the public good. The statement did not mention Israel. We knew that's what it was about. Decisions to refuse or cancel people's electronic travel authorizations on these grounds are based solely on assessment of the potential risk an individual may pose to UK society, the ministry added. Uygur and Piker had been listed to speak at the London edition of the South by Southwest Festival this week and at the University of Oxford over the weekend. I've been banned for criticizing Israel. Are we free anymore? Uygur said on X after saying he tried to board a flight. The UK has revoked my visa as well, Piker said on X, all at the behest of Israel. Oh, really? The Israeli government did not immediately respond to an emailed request for comments on Uygur and Piker's posts. Piker had been scheduled to deliver a talk at SXSW titled How the American Left Learned to Speak the Internet. Uygur's session was titled Techno-Feudalism is Here, Who Are the Lords? SXSW, London describes itself as a festival of business, technology, and creativity. It is the first European version of a popular festival of the same name held annually in Austin, Texas. The festival did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Piker blasted the organizers of SXSW, that's a tongue twister, on X as losers because they totally didn't defend him or his uncle. I will never work with them for the rest of my life, he said in part. If you bought a ticket expecting to see me, you should demand a refund. And in recent months, President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance have raised concerns about what they argue are infringements on free speech in Britain. But why? You do the same thing here. You do the same thing here. There's no free speech here. There is? Then why are students deported for saying free Palestine? Like, okay, bro. LOL. Anyways, the British government in May blocked 11 people from entering the country, describing them as foreign far-right agitators. The people had been scheduled to speak at an event organized by anti-Islam activist Tommy Robinson. Ye, the rapper formerly known as Kanye West, was blocked from entering Britain in April amid backlash over his anti-Semitic social media posts and songs. Uygur 56 draws more than 200 million views a month for the Young Turks, according to the SXSW London website. He was briefly a candidate in the 2024 Democratic presidential primaries. Piker 34 attracts a daily audience of 30,000 people on the live streaming platform Twitch, according to the website. And look, this is what it is. There's a panic, right? The central powers, the globalists, as Alex Jones says, whatever you want to call it, are all in a frenzy because despite the differences of the left and right, people are waking up to one core issue. And the people who wouldn't do it before are now increasingly becoming favorable to that side. Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, even Alex Jones has always known about this, but he's been more vocal against condemnation for the war in Iran. And so there is a panic, and there has to be a unified cause by these central powers to deter and really scare people from talking about this. And what better way than to deny visas? What better way than to not grant people access to countries, ban people from events, right? Put people on watch lists, consider them terrorists. Like, and this is the direction we're moving in. So if anything, again, people always say, oh, you know, the GOP is bad. Look, the Democrats are also going to be really bad in 2028. Not 2026 during the midterms, but in 2028, if a Democratic if we have a Democratic president, censorship is going to shape a new face. It's really going to get worse. It's going to get worse. And like I said, at the same time, Netanyahu is trying to disenfranchise from the United States. So many things happening at once. So could things relieve themselves? You know, who knows? But we'll go over so that's really it. I know I try to be calm and stuff, but, you know, you got to really understand, like, it's it's increasingly frustrating when like these people are not these are enemies, bro. These are enemies. And I told Sneeko that. I said, look, nigga, you my nigga. These niggas trying to kill you, nigga. These niggas hate you, nigga. And he knew, like, he was like, nah, you know, you're right. And then maybe we disagree, you know. And his goal is unification. God bless him. Like, that's a good goal, right? We should want unification. And that's powerful. Unification is powerful. There's power in unity. But these people don't want unity. Like, Hasan Piker doesn't want unity. And Sneeko's not even extreme at all. Like, yeah, Sneeko's made jokes in the past and, like, you know, he's had these things, these situations like the club, but Sneeko is very reasonable, you know? He's not crazy, far right, extremist, Nazi, like, he's not that, but Hasan Piker has slandered him for years. Sneeko gets banned on YouTube, Sneeko gets banned on Kick, somebody like Hasan Piker would just laugh. So, oh well, you know, he gets subpoenaed, I'm not crying. But anyways, we'll go over this. I don't know why, like, I get congested after I talk for a while. Anybody got a fix to that? But let's go over this situation with Axios. And I guess we'll watch a little bit of a video as to what's going on in Lebanon so you can understand Trump's frustration, why Trump is so angry, I guess, right? So let's take a look at this. Oops, it's a bit too big. All right, what is this? Total boomer moment here. Total boomer vibes.
While 50,000 U.S. troops in the Middle East wait for what's next, Israel keeps fighting. Today, its forces expanded its invasion of Lebanon. CBS's Imtiaz Tayeb at our London bureau has the very latest. Imtiaz.
Jarika, good evening. Well, we're still waiting to hear from Iran as to whether it will accept the president's changes to the Memorandum of Understanding, but trust between Washington and Tehran is at an all-time low, and Israel's widening offensive in Lebanon is only complicating matters.
The last time an Israeli flag was raised over this Crusader-era castle was more than a quarter of a century ago. 9 miles from Israel's border, the capture of Beaufort Castle in southern Lebanon follows days of intense fighting between Israeli forces and Iran-backed Hezbollah. Since March, more than 1 million people have been displaced. And
look at this, bro. Are you kidding me? All for the eradication of Hezbollah, really? Like, Hezbollah only ramped up its attacks against Israel because Israel was attacking Iran, and Israel killed the supreme leader. And obviously Iran, Hezbollah is like the same thing. It's all operating under one entity, the axis of resistance. And as a result, all these people are displaced from their homes. So really, I mean it, prayers for Lebanon, you know? Prayers for Lebanon.
1 million people have been displaced and at least 3,350 have been killed in Lebanon, according to the Lebanese Ministry of Health, despite a nominal ceasefire put in place last month. Israel's northern communities also remain largely evacuated. In a video tonight, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said his aim was to deepen and expand our grip on the places that were under Hezbollah's control. Just how much further Israel intends to expand its military operations in Lebanon is unclear. But it comes as Washington and Tehran inch towards agreeing a memorandum of understanding to reopen.
Interesting timing.
Open the Strait of Hormuz, begin intense negotiations to end the war, and deal with thornier issues like Iran's nuclear material. Still, for Tehran, a key demand for talks is for the fighting in Lebanon to end. Michael Oren is a former Israeli ambassador to the U.S.
We also understand that Mr. Netanyahu is not deeply involved in the negotiations that are being mediated by Pakistan. Why not?
I don't know if the president feels that he can't achieve all of those goals. He has pressures on him internally, certainly political pressures as the midterms approach. He has economic pressures as the price of gas continues to rise. And Israel has a different set of priorities.
And in a recent True Social post, President Trump said Iran must agree to never have a nuclear weapon and reopen the Strait of Hormuz with no tolls, but made no mention of Lebanon, Jarika, as the fighting there only intensifies.
All right, MTS Taya.
So yeah, that's that. And, you know, now they're targeting this city, and they're really telling all the residents south of the Zahrani River in Lebanon to evacuate. They're going to target Nebatia or Nebatli, Nabatlia in Arabic, whatever it is. And this is a symbolic symbol of resistance, or a symbolic city of resistance, and has always been the front line for Israeli aggression ever since the early 2000s. And so Israel has their eyes obviously on this in southern Beirut, and that's talked about over here.
Is now under Israeli occupation, a fifth of the entire country controlled by an invading power. How did this happen? Well, war broke out between Israel and Hezbollah in October 2023, and after a year of cross-border shelling and attacks, Israeli troops invaded. A ceasefire agreement came into effect in November 2024, which was meant to see Israeli troops withdraw and Hezbollah fighters move north of the Litani River. But Israel said Hezbollah had not fully moved back, so Israel's military kept demolishing entire villages in southern Lebanon, causing massive displacement. Then, in March this year, things really intensified. An Israeli-US strike killed Iran's supreme leader, and Hezbollah struck Israel in retaliation. Then Israel began intense strikes, and in April established a yellow line asserting a so-called security zone, 10 kilometers deep into Lebanon. Now, Israeli forces have crossed the Litani River and seized territory to the north for the first time since 2006. Troops captured the historic Beaufort.
And guys, I know I'm always saying this is a big deal. That's a big deal. This is a level of aggression that shows me no other sign other than the fact that Israel is now in a full-scale mission to annex southern Lebanon and take over everything south of the Litani River. This is the farthest they've ever gone. And they just now took control of the Beaufort Castle, which is also a symbolic area of resistance. And it was the last place that the IDF had pulled out from in 2000. And so in the last 26 years, they had not had this much control. And this is the worst it's been in recent history. And obviously, this is all happening amidst the ceasefire, and Iran knows this. And so for Iran, it's going to be very difficult to come to a deal. It's going to be very difficult to exercise diplomacy with the United States, if Lebanon is under the greatest offensive it has seen in recent history, especially if that means their proxy is at threat. And the casualties on the ground don't tell a lie either. There's about 3,400 IDF soldiers that are now KIA. And I believe for Hezbollah, it's about 3,000, just a little bit north of 3,000. Several others injured, of course. And so they're at war. And this is like not getting the mainstream coverage that it should. And that's why Trump is telling Netanyahu that you're fucking crazy. So pay attention here. Don't let this slip over you. This is a big deal. Definitely a big deal.
Beaufort Castle on a mountain overlooking southern Lebanon. Israeli forces previously held it from 1982 until they withdrew 18 years later.
And this is Benjamin Netanyahu talking, and for those of you listening, I'll go ahead and translate. He says, capture of the Beaufort Castle is a dramatic stage, a dramatic shift in the policy that we are leading. We have broken the barrier of fear, and we are taking the initiative. I mean, look at the language. We have broken the barrier of fear, and we are taking the initiative. It's over, bro. It's over. And this is the thing. They're in too deep. They've like gone too far to just pull out now and hang back. This is deep water. And so, it's a matter of a grab at land, and there's desperation here. Israel has to act fast. If the United States signs a long-term peace deal or a long-term ceasefire longer than 2 or 3 months, 60 days, 90 days, whatever it is, of strikes, it's going to make it really, really hard for Israel to get what they need done in southern Lebanon. And the Iran war is the last great power that Israel has to face. The Iranians are the controllers of the axis of resistance, funding these proxy groups that keep Israel at bay from their long-term mission of eventually taking a larger portion of control or pushing borders back against their own country in southern Lebanon, Golan Heights, West Bank, Gaza, so on and so forth. Israel sees Iran as the last piece of the puzzle, the last person in the way. And so for them, it's imperative that while the United States is currently at war with Iran, they make the move now. Now is the perfect strategic time. There's no point in time in where it makes more sense for Israel to do it than now. Why? Iran's got their hands full. They're fighting the United States, and they're also fighting Israel. And so Hezbollah is not going to be the same Hezbollah that they were back in 2023 and 2024. Simultaneously, understanding that, you must also understand they possess the ability to interrupt any sort of peace deal being effectuated so long as they continue this war in southern Lebanon. Every single reason really exists for them to continue this war in southern Lebanon. And so, you think about everything at the same time, no way they stop. No way they stop. People really think Donald Trump is going to control Bibi? What, he's going to have like a 4 or 5 day ceasefire? And then Trump brags about it on Truth Social, says they put their guns down. No, they didn't. And you've been saying this and they refuse to stop. So, has it never been more obvious that we have no control over the situation? I don't think it's ever been this obvious. But, it is what it is. Anyways, I had a chat. Let me read this. Rhino, thank you so much for the 20. He says, isn't relevant with the topic, but I got a unformal warning in Australia for sharing a clip of your brother saying women shouldn't vote. They told me that my current visa could go under review. I'm telling you, bro. It's like, what are we talking about? Thank you for bringing up Australia. I forgot to mention, Sneeko is banned from Australia. And people say, Riyadh, this is too much. This is too much chaos, Riyadh. You're causing too much disunity. You're trying to draw lines and divide everybody. Like Hasan Piker. Like, no, bro. Like, look at what's happening to Sneeko. Look at what's happening to my brother. All these other guys in the space. And, you think about all these things. None of these guys on the left ever show any sort of sympathy for that. I'll turn the cheek a little bit. I'll take the high road a little bit, but not that much, bro. Not when somebody's saying the U.S. deserved 9/11, I'm supposed to turn the cheek for them and say, no, have sympathy for them. Like, no, actually. Like, bro, why would I do that? Hey, bro, by the way, that's crazy. Don't share any more videos of my brother, bro. Yo, and honestly, I'll take this moment to kind of give you guys a word of advice because you guys really underestimate how much the United States has now become the surveillance state. Be careful with what you like on social media. Be careful with who you follow even. I know that's crazy for me to say myself, but like, just be careful. Just be careful. If you're in Australia or the UK, like really just don't even ever express a political opinion. It's actually worse over there. But, if you live in the US even, you're trying to get into college, you're trying to get a good job, whatever it is, just refrain from sharing your political opinion. Refrain from sharing my brother on your story, or be careful. Be very careful. And people may say, Riyadh, what's wrong with you? You don't want us to support your brother. No, I want you to. And I know you do. But like, don't be a dumbass and like completely expose your power level. And my brother and I say this, don't be stupid. Don't be dumb. Be very careful with some of these things. So I'm not saying you're stupid right now. I'm just saying, you shared a video. You never thought anything of it. And now they're threatening to put your visa under review. So be careful, man. It's the world we live in. You could fight back. Like, I get it. You could fight back. But, at what cost, man? At what cost? You got to earn a living. You got to have a job. You got to make a living. You got to have a life. You have a family. You don't want to put them at risk. Be very careful, You can be outspoken on certain topics, but really watch it. Really watch it. Talking about transgenderism, talking about the left, talking about Israel, talking about women. Just be very careful with all of it. It's dangerous stuff. There's a lot of red lines in all of those categories and all those talking points. So just be very careful, man. And this is for my younger people, too. It's for all the young folk. Actually, a quick story. So, what was it? Like, when I first started streaming, I got recognized at the gym. Like when I did that collab with my brother over the New York City Times Square prayer thing, I got recognized in the gym. And this kid was telling me, yo, I saw you and Sneeko and Myron all debate and whatever. I saw you guys talk about Times Square. I really love everything you guys do. Love all of you guys, But he was telling me, bro interrupted my hack squat session, by the way. Super crazy. Like, I'm doing squats. Like, I'm doing hack squats. And if you've ever done hack squats, you know how hard that is. Bro, I'm like literally like veins popping out of every part of my body, every part of my face. Like literally, I'm so black, yet my face is still red from how hard I'm exerting force, training super hard. This nigga gonna come up to me and just stand there like this. But nah, I was super nice with him. It's okay. I was just joking. And he told me, he said, yo, I got in mad trouble with my job. I'm not going to say where he works at and dox him. He said, I got in mad trouble with my job because I shared a video of your brother. And I said, bro, be careful. Like, take it easy, because I guess some coworker saw that he shared the video, saw a story, told somebody else told somebody else, that eventually got to like HR or management. And he didn't get fired, but he got in trouble. And I said, bro, hide the power level, nigga. You know, take it easy. Be careful. And it wasn't just like any clip of my brother. Like, he was going crazy. I think it was the clip where he actually I'm not even gonna say what clip it was, but it was a crazy clip. So if you remember the club situation in the bus, I think it was that clip, if I remember correctly. So just be careful, you know, just be careful. This was right after we had that, like, I think second debate about Times Square, right? It was right around that time. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, he told me that. I'm like, yo, just take it easy. People think I say that and they take it as like me going, oh, like, you know, just completely give up, be a pussy. Like, no, I'm not saying that, but use your brain a little. Use your brain a little. Not everybody needs to know where you stand politically. You know, you're at like a house party and some girl goes, fuck Trump. Don't be like the based guy. And I know this is like really cucked, but like, it just depends on how much heat you want to catch. If a girl's like, I don't like Donald Trump, don't be like, well, Trump. Because obviously the right and the left hate Trump for very different reasons, and we have to distinguish that. Otherwise, we look like leftists, right? The other day, one of my clips went viral where I was talking about how Donald Trump is an L. I was talking about how people are attacking Islam when a mosque gets shot up. It's like really corny. It's like bad time to attack Islam. Hey, bro, time and place, whatever. And people took it as me being this like bleeding heart leftist. And so I didn't care. I don't feel the need to explain myself. But, you know, just even these days, you show support for Trump, you get in trouble. So unless you have a political aspiration, just watch this stuff with your headphones, lay low, use a privacy screen on your phone if you're watching this in public at lunch. Just be mindful, man. People really smell blood out there, and they'll make sure they can hurt your life badly, you know. So just be careful. Be careful. And then that's even if you're not on the right. You know, you could be somebody who is a little bit more in the middle. You're like a libertarian like Dave Smith, you know. You voice these opinions about Lebanon and all this stuff, it lands you in some trouble. So, little word of advice for the young bucks, for the young niggas, because I'm 24. And it's crazy to think like I'm still young, but bro, I am now 3.5 years out of college at this point, pretty much. Graduated about 3 years and some change ago. And you got to realize, I will get back to the news. You got to realize that from college graduation, which is around 21 years old, as long as you graduate on time, to like 24, 25, is actually worth like, it's like actual 10 years worth of experience and like learning and maturing. Like that time is compounded. Like you mature so much more from 21 to 24 than you do from like maybe 27 to 29. You know what I mean? So really be careful in those years. Those are critical years. If you don't have a political aspiration, don't just lean into that stuff unnecessarily. You can land in a lot of trouble. So be careful. Just be careful, you know? Because now I'm old and stuff, and like I have a whole different perspective on these things than I did at 20. You know? I used to constantly post about Gaza and like what's going on before the war, by the way. Way before October 7th, I was posting about that stuff on Instagram. It honestly just used to kind of get me in trouble sometimes. Like, and it's like, bro, what's the point? Like, I'm just hurting my life, you know? So like, unless you're going to have a platform and go, you're either all in or you're all out. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, you're either all in or you're all out. I'm not saying shut up, but just be careful where you voice your opinions, man. A lot of people don't have the ability to like discern as to whether they should say what they believe in certain spaces. Like, where's a good place to say it, you know? So just, you know, you don't always have to be Mr. Based. You know, sometimes it's a little bit more powerful when people don't know where you stand. Not to sound like really cynical and nasty, but like that's just like, you know, be a little bit mindful about that. It's not the first time. Rhino, I appreciate the super chat because you're reminding me of things I've always wanted to talk about on stream. But it's not the first time I heard stuff like that. That's crazy, obviously. That's just like what happened to you is nuts. What happened to you is totally crazy. It's not your fault. But that does speak to a larger point, like, don't put yourself in harm's way. But Australia is so cucked.
The fortress is on the...
And Benjamin Netanyahu finished off here. He says, we are operating on all fronts in Syria, Gaza, and Lebanon. So...
The fortress is on the outskirts of Nabatea, which is Lebanon's 5th largest city. It's a key economic and cultural hub for the region. It's viewed by many Lebanese as a symbol of resistance due to its historic role on the front line of Israeli assaults. Israel's military is now issuing forced displacement orders for areas around the Zahrani River, around 40 kilometers north of Israel's border. Again, without providing evidence saying Hezbollah uses these areas to carry out operations against Israel. And at this point, it seems hard to know where it will end.
Yeah, so that's the current situation in Lebanon. And what does that provoke? I guess the president of the United States to rein in on Netanyahu and completely spaz out. So this is out of Axios, and this is all the hype these last few days. Every single outlet was talking about this. Every single political commentator reacted to this. And I'm sure Timcast, Tim Pool and my brother will talk about this tomorrow. But this here reads, President Trump lashed out at Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over Israel's escalation in Lebanon in an expletive-laden call on Monday. Two U.S. officials and a third source briefed on the call told Axios earlier on Monday Iran threatened to abandon the negotiations with the United States over Israel's actions in Lebanon. On the call, Trump called Netanyahu crazy and accused him of ingratitude, according to one of the two sources, or according to two of the sources. He also put the brakes on Israel's plan to strike Beirut, which is crazy. One U.S. official said Trump told Netanyahu that following through on his threats to bomb the Lebanese capital would further isolate Israel around the world. You don't say, Captain Obvious here. Two of the sources said Trump claimed he'd help to keep Netanyahu out of jail, a reference to support during Netanyahu's corruption trial. Summarizing Trump's remarks to Netanyahu, the U.S. official said, "You're fucking crazy. You would be in prison if it weren't for me. I'm saving your ass. Everybody hates you now. Everybody hates Israel because of this." It's like, bro, whoa. A second source briefed in the call said Trump was pissed and at one point yelled at Netanyahu, "What the fuck are you doing?" You can't control him. You can't control him, Mr. President. Hey, this guy has been doing things to isolate Israel around the world for 3 years now. It's not just the last few days of bombing Lebanon and increasing their campaign. It's been since Gaza. Hello? What, you're now magically waking up to the problem of Israel? OSS Small says, 07, bro, keep going, Riyadh. Also hit that like button and get the engagement up for Riyadh. Thank you so much, OSS Small, member for 2 months. Shout out to you, bro. Yeah, so it's like, you know, Israel blockades food from Gaza. Israel starves Palestinians. Half of the strip is like under 18 or 18 or younger. Donald Trump says, well, you know, it's complicated. Now he's messing up your peace deal. Now it's like you're reprimanding him. And it's like, who knows what the ploy is out of the White House. Maybe they want to make it seem like Trump is controlling something here. They want to make it seem like the war in Lebanon is about to stop so they can have a chance at peace with Iran or a ceasefire. Right? But it's like, oh, now he's pissed. This is just so funny. Because if you've been paying attention to the situation since 2023, it's like it's a little too late for this, Mr. Donald Trump. It's a little too late to be mad. You should have told Netanyahu he was fucking crazy back in 2023 when he was bombing the shit out of children for no good reason. And saying Hamas was hiding under hospitals. Hamas was hiding in houses. Hamas was everywhere. Hamas, 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 Hamas. You know, Israel intercepts the Gaza flotilla meant to supply aid to starving Palestinians without much things. And Israel says, oh, they're going to bring weapons to Hamas. It's always Hamas. Did you remember that? We spoke about that story about 3 or 4 weeks ago. You never asked them what the fuck they're doing until they're messing up your ceasefire, huh? Now it matters. Interesting. So, anyways, The U.S. official said Trump knew Hezbollah had been shooting at Israel and that Israel needed to defend itself. Yeah, sure. But it felt in recent days that Netanyahu was escalating in a disproportionate way. It's not in recent days that he's been escalating disproportionately. That's been forever. In addition to the threats on Beirut, Israel has been expanding its ground operation in southern Lebanon. Another U.S. official said Trump was concerned by the fact that Israel had killed so many civilians in Lebanon and objected to the Israelis knocking down buildings to take out a single Hezbollah commander. This is what they do. They will bomb a village. They will bomb a block. They will bomb a school if it means killing one guy who's not even that important. He's like remotely important to Hezbollah. This is what we did in the beginning of the war against Iran. We hit a school, killed north of like 170 children, and Donald Trump sat proud on Air Force One and said, well, I don't think that was us. I don't know who that was. That might have been Iran. He says Iran hit their own people. Iran bombed their own school so they can have a greater reason to attack the United States. Hey, buddy, you killed their supreme leader. They don't need to build up any more of a case to attack you. They have a strong enough case already. Why would they bomb their own school? Pete Hegseth is behind him, biting his nails. Like, why would the president say that? And then intelligence comes out and says, yeah, we had faulty intelligence. It was a U.S. Tomahawk missile that bombed that school. And this is like what the U.S.-Israeli joint strikes always look like. Killing so many civilians for, what, the greater good of killing one guy who, in the grand scheme of things, is insignificant to the cause because Iran has a mosaic defense where their military operates effectively, independent of actual leadership that tells them what to do, which is why the war continued and it got bad for the Middle East even after we killed the supreme leader. So what does carpet bombing people do? Nothing to actually weaken the regime you're fighting, like Hezbollah or Iran. But this is what they do. They don't care. And at any cost, if Israel gets intelligence, if the Mossad gets a hint that some guy is in some place, they're going to bomb the whole place if it means killing that one person. This is what they have been known for. This has been the situation in Gaza, like no surprise there. Right? Objected to the Israelis knocking down buildings to take out a single Hezbollah commander. They always do that. They always do that. We're going to talk about it now. They've been doing that since March. Anyways, state of play is Israel no longer plans to strike Hezbollah targets in Beirut. Okay, that's no development at all. An Israeli official told Axios, between the lines, Trump and Netanyahu have had several tense calls in the past, but have still coordinated closely on Iran and other issues. One official said this is one of Trump's worst calls with Netanyahu since he returned to office. Trump's anger appeared to be driven by the fact that Netanyahu's decision to escalate in Lebanon was threatening to implode his negotiations with Iran. After the call, Trump posted on Truth Social that the Iran talks were continuing at a rapid pace. Yeah, sure. Netanyahu released a statement after the call saying he told Trump that Israel would attack targets in Beirut if Hezbollah did not stop attacking Israel, and that in the meantime, Israel would continue its operations in southern Lebanon. Our position remains the same, Netanyahu wrote. The second U.S. official claimed that in reality, Trump had steamrolled Netanyahu on the call. Bibi said, okay, just make sure everything is taken care of, according to the official. Netanyahu's office did not respond to a request for comment, and that's pretty much it. And then it talks about the memorandum of agreement between the United States and Iran and its ongoing changes. But, you know, we're not making progress, to say the least, okay? We are not making progress. Israel has made the most progress that it has made in a long time in covering ground in southern Lebanon and taking back what they believe to be theirs. They're not going to stop because big, scary Donald Trump calls them and says to stop. What do you think? Donald Trump is that strong and powerful against the Israeli lobby? He worked with them to unseat Thomas Massie. He worked with them to revoke free speech rights and kick out visa students to talk about Palestine. Like, he works with them on everything. He worked with them so closely, he bombed Iran. He's sending people to die in Iran. 50,000 troops are on the edge of their seat waiting to potentially enter a ground invasion in Iran or get on a Navy destroyer and enter the Strait of Hormuz or the Persian Gulf. So it's like, what is this? What does this phone call really mean? Ooh, Trump's fighting back. Trump's putting Bibi in his place. This is all bullshit. This is all a ruse. This is all a ploy to make you think Trump is doing something. Trump ain't doing shit, okay? Trump was doing something, strikes would have stopped on April 7th when the ceasefire really started. Don't be stupid, right? It is based, right? Like, it is based. Like, I could imagine Trump on the phone with Netanyahu like, what the hell are you doing? You're fucking everything up. Mr. President, Mr. President. All right, I'm like totally, completely just being a clown, but it is pretty funny to think about. You're fucking crazy. You're fucking crazy, BB. You're making it hard for me. You're making it so hard. All the Democrats are attacking me. My approval rating's dropping. Netanyahu's like, but Mr. President, Hezbollah, the terrorist regime, they're not regulated. They're not regulated. Regulated. I'm brain rotting. Yeah, so that's that, you know, and Trump said something on Truth Social, so I suppose we can go ahead and give that a read, even though it's probably going to be headache-inducing. We'll go ahead and take a look at what Trump put on Truth Social in regards to his control over the situation in Lebanon, because I think he posted something, but it's like, who even cares anymore? Everything he puts on Truth Social is just slop and bullshit. Let's see. So, fake news reports that the Islamic Republic of Iran and the USA stopped speaking a few days ago are false and erroneous. The conversations between us have been going on continuously, including 4 days ago, 3 days ago, 2 days ago, 1 day ago, and today. Okay, bro had to like say that. That way you could just say it for the last 5 days. Holy dummy. Where they lead, no one ever knows. One never knows, but as I told Iran, it's time, one way or another, for you to make a deal. You've been doing this for 47 years. They cannot be allowed to go on any longer. All right, bro. You said you were going to bomb their power plants like 3 years ago. What are you going to do? You going to stand on business or not? You start to get tired of all the bragging. You start to get tired of all the empty threats. It's like, shut up. Every day it's the same thing. And honestly, it's gone to the point where, like, I go live and I'm like, damn, I'm just going to have to tell you guys the same exact story. It's the same thing over and over again. And to me, that shows we don't really want to end the conflict, because if we wanted to, we would have made it happen. Xbox is dead sent a super chat in. Thank you so much. He said, what would you grade Trump's second term worse than the first? Oh, yeah, 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. Starting a war in Iran is beyond the pale. 100%. Hey, this isn't just worse than his first. This is the worst U.S. president since Bush, actually. That's how far I'll go. Trump symbolically is based. Trump culturally represents a lot of the things that people on the right believe in. You know, he's brave. He stands up to the press. He says what's on his mind. And so there's a refreshing element to that. But overall, he's cucked by Israel far worse than every other president has been in the last 10 or 15 years. That's just the facts. And I spoke about that and went into detail on it on a couple streams ago. So, yeah. But, yeah, we'll go into the Cory Booker and Marco Rubio fight at Capitol Hill. We'll go over some of that. This will be juicy. This will be fun. But, yeah, Trump calling Netanyahu fucking crazy, huh? You fucking crazy. You fucking crazy. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. But it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. He has no control over anything. He controls nothing. Nothing. Okay? Anyways, let's get this video rolling. I kind of got to get up and take a little twinkle, but we're going to do the show.
I was listening to their conversations you had with some of my colleagues.
So this was today. So this is fresh. We're getting fresh news, baby. Fresh. Fresh off the grill here.
We've now seen the Strait closed for months, and you explained that we're going to see an opening of the Strait, and that ultimately the exchange we will get for that is after that fact we will release certain sanctions. Is that correct?
No, that's not what I said. What I said was that if they open the Straits, we will lift our blockade. The Straits and the blockade are what are interrelated.
And so for the nuclear program, in exchange for...
But the foreign minister and the parliament speaker and really the peace talk delegation of Iran have said several times that the blockade is what is provoking them to continue the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, the blockade of the blockade. Us blocking their naval ports, us blocking them, is an act of aggression that is going to warrant them to continuously block the Strait of Hormuz. So I'm not saying Rubio's contradicting himself or anything. I'm just saying, like, Iran is saying the same exact thing on their end. We're saying no peace talks until they release the Strait, and they're saying no peace talks until you release our blockade of the Strait, right? Or our blockade of the naval ports, or your blockade rather. And it's like the shit just gets confusing to talk about. Blocking this, blocking that. You're all idiots. You're all idiots. Why the fuck would you bomb Iran, okay?
Getting rid of the fissile material out of country, I imagine, is what the highly enriched uranium. We would release sanctions. Is that correct?
Well, it's not just that. It's also their enrichment activity. They would have to, they would have to make very severe and significant concessions on what they intend to enrich in the future.
And already with the March relaxing of sanctions, allowing Iranians to sell oil to the Chinese, estimates have been between $10 and $50 billion they got from that relaxing of sanctions. How much money might we see in a deal in our relaxings of sanctions in order to get rid of the highly enriched uranium and stop their enrichment?
Well, let me just tell you on that portion. The sanctions that were released on Iran were boats on the water. And so that oil was already out in the marketplace. It was sold at market rates, but the sanctions covered, and to the extent we've been able to enforce them, we have the revenues of those sales. So yeah, the Iranian oil was unsanctioned so that it could be sold, but the revenue would have to flow back to blocked accounts, which our sanctions were able to go after. We've also seized, I believe, 6 vessels in the Indo-Pacific that involved Iranian sanctioned oil on top of it. So that wasn't necessarily a trade. They didn't get $50 billion directly as a result of, they might have gotten some of it, they certainly didn't get the majority of it. They are now losing hundreds of millions of dollars a day in revenue because of the blockade. And the blockade exists because of what they're doing in the Straits.
Right.
And shout out to Chuck on Discord. So this is the tweet that I was looking for. I saw this with the Truth Social post. It says, I had a conversation with Bibi Netanyahu today asking him not to go into a major raid of Beirut, Lebanon. He turned his troops around. Thank you, Bibi. I also had a conversation with representatives of the leaders of Hezbollah, and they agreed to stop shooting at Israel and its soldiers. Likewise, Israel agreed to stop shooting at them. Let's see how long that lasts. Hopefully, it will be for eternity. President Donald J. Trump. Who's eating this up? This is like something a 5-year-old would write. Hey, I had a conversation with Netanyahu today, and he said he's not going to bomb Lebanon. Hey, nigga, he already has 20%. Like, what are we talking about? Today, I had a conversation with Bibi Netanyahu. No more bombing Lebanon. Okay. They control everything south of the Litani River. They just took back the Beaufort Castle. They're telling everybody within the Zahrani River south of it to vacate their homes. They're displacing more people. They're taking control of more land. The IDF is ramping up on their attack. Benjamin Netanyahu is telling the press inside of Israel, is telling his military, we are going to take more of Lebanon. Ben Gvir the other day had like a hyped up huddle with IDF soldiers saying, do not worry, we are going to go as far as southern Beirut in our annexation project. Like, I'm sorry, what are we missing here? Don't believe me? Take a look at this. Israeli National Security Minister Ben Gvir says there are 600 Hezbollah fighters who, God willing, were eliminated in recent weeks, but that is not enough. The Dahia needs to be flattened. And the Dahia is the region or a suburb south of Lebanon. We need to go after the Dahia. It's allegedly a Hezbollah stronghold. The Dahia needs to be flattened, then flatten it again, whatever. Dear Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, I love you, I appreciate you, but it is time to flatten the Dahia. And this is him talking about it. And I mean, even if you don't understand Hebrew, you can probably make out he's saying the same thing over and over again.
צריך לשטח את הדחיה. לשטח את הדחיה. אני התנגדתי.
את השייח, את הדחיה. What is he saying?
את הדחיה. אני התנגדתי להפסקת אש הקודמת. אני היום גם אומר, חייבים לשטח. צה"ל עושה עבודה. יש 600 חיזבאלונים שברוך השם חיסלו בשבועות האחרונים, אבל זה לא מספיק. מה שקורה להם זה הדחיה. צריך ללכת על הדחיה, לשטח, ועוד פעם לשטח. חיזבאללה בדחיה, לשטח את החיזבאללה בדחיה.
And so you see this and you go, oh, where's Dahia? Take a look at this. You know, right here. So, take a look at that map. It's right there. That's Beirut. Okay? And they have pretty much everything south of here. This river here. So, you know, one of those things where the president's saying one thing, but a completely different thing is unfolding on the ground. How long are people going to eat up the slop? It's getting really frustrating.
Right, and I guess the conclusion I have, and my time's expired, is that the Strait of Hormuz was open before this unjustified war. We're now scrambling to try to find a way to get it back opened again. Not only is it causing economic havoc to our country and to residents all around this nation, families trying to make ends meet, but you see on top of that, the Iranians finding ways to leverage that, as we allowed them to do with the Chinese for tens of billions of dollars. And so my point is, before we even get to a nuclear negotiation, this regime is getting money to rebuild, purchase more drones, cause more havoc. And this is before we're even trying to get back to a
But
point
I apologize. I don't understand how they're getting this. What revenue are you referring to?
Well, there's two sources of revenue we're seeing. One is the revenue from the Chinese, that's factually documented. And number two, the revenue that you're proposing that they should receive by releasing all of their highly enriched uranium, as well as in making a commitment about their enrichment capacities.
Yeah.
Hold on. And that was the exact deal that you guys vilified, that the president and you vilified President Obama from having.
Yeah. Now,
it's like they're watching the show. It's so lovely. It's like, yes, fry him! Fry him! Because I've been saying, I'm just crashing out. I've been saying the same thing, bro, for 50 days. Like, bro, the other day, Sneeko tuned into my stream on live. And he was like, oh, look, it's Riyadh talking about Iran for the 7,000th day. It's like, bro, but I keep saying the same thing. Like, please, somebody, please, somebody press them. These are great talking points. Amazing talking points. Phenomenal. Please fry him. This is what I'm saying. Think about it. Iran has had 1,000,000 days since the beginning of the ceasefire to build up missiles, to build up drones, to continue enriching uranium. No deal has been signed, nigga. Okay? Don't worry, guys. We're going to halt the uranium. Hey, dumbass. No deal has been signed, nigga. Okay? No deal has been signed. Well, God knows what they're doing with all the uranium. They might have a bomb right now. That's a conspiracy theory. No, it's not. Hey, imagine you just get attacked by the United States and Israel, and they absolutely destroy your infrastructure, kill your supreme leader, kill innocent civilians, 3,000, 4,000 plus. That's what the number was around the middle of March, moving into April before the ceasefire. Trump is saying, I'm going to send them back to the stone. We're going to send them back to the Stone Age. Trump is threatening all of these things. Pete Hegseth is echoing the same rhetoric. Marco Rubio suggesting they're crazy Shia clerics, they can't have a bomb. JD Vance as well. And then, we're giving Iran, this regime that we're so terrified of that we had to attack out of nowhere, we're giving them 70, 80 days to replenish their munitions that they were using during the war. We're fucked. Hello, this is bad. Do I need to pull out the New York Times article again? Do I need to pull out the CIA report? 75% of their missile, CIA reported 75% of Iran's ballistic missile capability has been replenished ever since the ceasefire started. Iran said it's actually 120%. And throughout the entire conflict, everything Trump has been saying has been false. Trump said, if you remember a couple weeks ago, Iran only has 18 to 17% of their ballistic missiles capability left. Trump is contradicting intelligence. This administration is lying to your face, lying straight to your face through their filthy teeth, saying, don't worry, they're almost done. Don't worry, no Navy, no Air Force. Bro, it was never about the Navy. Hello, it was never about the Navy. It was never about the Air Force. They got the speedboats, they got the missiles, they got the drones, they got the uranium. You're fucked. That's the crux of it all. That's what matters. That's why we got into this war. We want a regime change. Now we just made them closer with China. Now they have more missiles than they probably did have before the war started, or they're close to that same level if they're saying 120% replenishment. And now they're ready for our attack. Remember, we were going to start up attacks like 2 weeks ago on the weekend, and there were reports from several news outlets suggesting that Iran was ready for the pattern of airstrikes, which is why the United States deliberately held back. Because we felt like our air campaign would not be as effective as it was the first time around. And the first time around was not even an effective air campaign. What is there left to do? Nigga, we've juiced everything. We have nothing left on the table. There's no options except to bomb them to hell. The only option now is to turn Iran into a parking lot like Israel did to Gaza. That's really the only option Donald Trump has if he wants to, quote unquote, win this war strategically. They say we won militarily. It's negligible. It doesn't matter. It's not relevant to the fact that we started the war to change the regime. Now we have a worse regime. Bro, like somebody cook up on Rubio. Somebody cook up. Booker, I love it. Like, bro, I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of it. And I'll be honest, like Marco Rubio actually does a decent job at like fighting back. He makes better arguments than like Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump. But it's like, brother, the truth is not with you, my friend.
So here we have a worse situation where our adversary and our enemy, who's causing havoc in the region, who is funding proxies and terrorists, has discovered, thanks to you all, the power of shutting down the Strait of Hormuz.
No, they didn't discover. They knew that a long time ago, and they've done it before.
Clearly, we all knew that a long time ago. That's why this ill-conceived war should have never happened.
Yeah, but
you have made our adversary in a stronger negotiating position. We are the strongest nation on the planet Earth, and we're in a stalemate with Iran. And now we're begging to get back into a deal that you all trashed in the first place.
There's no one begging.
Cook him! Cook him!
This is
Senator Booker, your time's up.
But
Senator Rubio, since he's
I do want to address some of these
respond.
points because they go to the heart of the matter. No one's begging for anything here.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Every single time Trump posts on Truth Social, what does he say? Don't worry, the Strait is going to be opened up. Don't worry, the Strait needs to be open. Hey, Iran, we could talk. The Strait needs to be open. But then at the same time, Donald Trump is also saying, we don't need the Strait. Fuck NATO, they're paper tigers. Which one is it? Do we not need the Strait or do we need it? I'm like crashing out tonight. Let me calm down. Let me go back to classic rehab. But I'm like having a little bit of fun. But it's like, which one is it? You know, Donald Trump has said repeatedly, and I'm going to let the video play, but he said repeatedly, we don't need the Strait of Hormuz. That's not where we get our oil. Yeah, that's true. But tell that to the people in California who are paying $7 a gallon for regular gas. Like, what is the point of even saying that? It still has a price shock on our economy. It's still destroying our economy. It's still going to cause some sort of shortage. It's going to cause a price increase. But don't worry, we bombed their infrastructure. Don't worry. We killed a bunch of people. Like, brother, Trump don't care about none of us. You know? You don't care about none of us. And then look at Europe and Asia. They're suffering. They actually depend on that oil coming out of the Gulf. Around the middle of the ceasefire period, in the middle of April, I read a report that Kuwait had not exported any oil in like 30 days. Bro. What's going to happen to our relationships in the Middle East after this? It's cooked. It's tarnished.
The Iranians might be begging because their economy is losing hundreds of millions of dollars a day. That they are losing. Understand, Iran had street protests going on before all of this started.
That you charged up. You had the CIA and Mossad inside of all of those protests. That's why the IRGC was so brutal with the protesters. Mike Pompeo admitted that in a tweet. Next. Mike Pompeo, former CIA director, went on Twitter and said, a Mossad agent walks alongside every protester. Do you have the gall to really say that? You have the gall to really keep using these talking points? Like the United States is not known for overthrowing regimes by planting some sort of coup d'etat revolt attempt. This is what we've done historically every single time to get our goal. To change a regime for the regime change. Didn't work. And then what do? We do an air campaign for regime change. That also never works. Never works. You want to play around and you want to inject some American influence into a country. I'm not opposed to that. But full-scale regime change and removing a leader that has a lot of power and control and is already prepared for your attack by doing homework against their neighbors that have been subject to your regime change capabilities for the last 30 years is retarded. You know, it's retarded. And this is Persia we're talking about. This is Persia. You cannot conquer Persia.
All of those factors, economic factors in Iran, are far worse today than they were 6 months ago when those protests were happening. They have hyperinflation. Their currency's completely devalued. They're struggling to make payroll for their government workers. Iran is in a very serious situation. And
yeah, but they're fighting an existential threat. So it's all worth it. There has been a rally around the flag effect. Iran's losing money. Iran has inflation through the roof. We've sanctioned them to hell ever since 2018 when Donald Trump pulled out of the JCPOA. They've been dealing with inflation. They've been dealing with an unstable economy. So Exactly what changes now that they're facing a threat that is trying to remove their power structure, that has charged up the people to get behind the IRGC, despite them not being favorable towards the IRGC prior. When Israel and the United States join hands and attack you, you likely will convert from being somebody who's not the biggest fan of the regime to backing the regime for the greater good of your country not being taken over by adversaries, because that's how they view us. So exactly what did we do? We charged up people to like the regime more than they did previously. So any of the numbers you see about favorability towards the IRGC is probably different prior to the war than it is now. And that's just what a rally around the flag effect is. Even in the case where, God forbid, if something happened to Donald Trump in an attempt on his life, and another country was behind it, and then it also happened to Marco Rubio, and then it also happened to Pete Hegseth, which is what we effectively did in Iran. I'm mirroring the situation for you. The left and the right would have the highest likelihood of uniting against a foreign adversary. Am I wrong? Is that not reasonable to assume? So what do you think the case is in Iran? Oh, but we put their backs against the wall. Their economy is struggling. They've learned how to operate with a struggling economy. We didn't throw sanctions at them, then start the war the next day. No, we threw sanctions at them, and then almost 10 years later started the war when they already became adjusted to dealing with said sanctions. And China was supporting them on the back end, giving them intelligence, giving them satellite, giving them radar, giving them weapons, Russia as well. So they're most equipped to deal with this issue because they've learned how to circumvent the matter and still make it breathable. And they also have the Caspian Sea. Have we done anything about that? Because they're probably making money there as well. No one talks about that. They probably utilize the Caspian Sea just like sanctioned Russia has been doing for years. So like, come on. Really? Really? But they're losing money, Okay, and they might be backfilling that with tolling the ships in the Strait of Hormuz. $2 million per ship is allegedly how much they're charging. And now the U.S. has to say, no, don't worry, it's environmental costs. Okay. Again, tell this to the people in California. Tell this to Americans who are paying way too much for gas, way too much for food, already struggling. College students can't get a job. H-1B visas are shitting on you. And then you got Marco Rubio saying, don't worry, gas is going to come down. Donald Trump stands outside of the Marine One and he says, don't worry. I don't care about the American people. They should be appreciative of the fact that I'm eradicating the Iranian regime because they were going to make a bomb. They weren't going to make a bomb. Now they're going to make a bomb. Now they might have a bomb. And now it's a really big, dirty bomb. You and J.D. Vance want to sit in the White House talking about a big, dirty bomb. J.D. Vance at the RNC is always saying they're going to make a big, dirty bomb. We must strike Iran. Well, now they actually will. Good job. You poked the bear. Good job. And so that's why I say the only way to really stop this is to nuke them, is to literally nuke them. What else do you do? And by nuking, I mean hitting their energy infrastructure, like their power plants, their electric grid. That's what Donald Trump is threatening. Yeah, that would actually destabilize them a lot. That would make fighting for them very difficult. But guess what happens? Then they respond by retaliatory strikes on the Gulf countries. Saudi Arabia loses power. Kuwait loses power. Bahrain loses power. Or they hit the desalination plants that reverse ocean water to drinking water. Within weeks, the Middle East has starvation. They have a shortage of water. How do we remedy that? While fighting the war across the Persian Gulf. They already hit a desalination plant in Kuwait about a month ago, if you didn't know that. And allegedly it's going to take months to repair. And it was one small strike. They don't have air defense. U.S. air defense is running low in the region. It's stretched wide and thin. But Marco Rubio is telling you, don't worry. They're losing a couple bucks. Hey, last time I checked, they're still replenishing missiles at a record rate. So whatever little money they're making is going towards their military. Exactly what we don't need to be funded anymore. We gave them the greatest buffer period. And this is why I said in the beginning, I'm not for the war, but if you want to take down Iran, you can't stop. You got to keep beating with the hammer. You got to hit the iron while it's hot. You got to keep going. You can't do it in doses. That's not a country you can attack in doses. Not when Russia and China are back behind them, replenishing them. You're playing Fortnite, you get a nigga down, finish him. Before you're playing squads, the other three niggas come, start building like crazy, revive him. That's Iran. We got Iran down, and we're letting their teammates catch up to revive him. It's you might as well finish the job. I don't want the war in Iran. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm just arguing from their perspective what they did was stupid, even for their interest. And why did they have to do it? Because the Gulf countries were getting hit. So Trump had to decide. Trump had to decide. Obviously, Israel and Netanyahu were greatly disappointed with the fact that the United States paused the war. Mark Levin, every day on X, I just saw a clip of him on X. He just put out a tweet saying, I'm not trying to be a warmonger, but Trump, you really want to get back into this conflict if you know what's good for you. Like, nigga, it's so obvious, bro. These guys don't care about the United States. All they care about is their goal. They want Israel to be safe. They want Israel to have complete hegemony in the Middle East. You know? Let me find that tweet from Mark Levin while we continue to react to Rubio.
If it was up to the political class there, and I understand everybody there is sort of radical in some way, but if it was up to the people that actually like go to elections and wear the suits and you see on TV, they'd probably make a deal tomorrow. It's the issue they're facing is that the supreme leader and the IRGC Corps are a little bit more immune from those pressures until they can be convinced otherwise. And I think that's the direction that they're moving in, because the reality, I don't know where you're getting this perception that Iran is stronger. Iran has no navy left. They've lost a substantial percentage of their defense industrial base. That Iran has lost a substantial percentage of their missile launchers, and their economy is...
I'm going to leave this here. U.S. intelligence shows Iran retains substantial missile capabilities. By the way, this is as of May 12th, 2026. The Trump administration's public portrayal of a shattered Iranian military is sharply at odds with what U.S. intelligence agencies are telling policymakers behind closed doors. Simple translation, Trump is lying.
It's far worse today, and I mean far worse today than it was 6 to 9 months ago. And they are looking at hundreds of billions of dollars of reconstruction costs just to get to where they were 6 months ago.
Mr. Rubio, you keep telling us how we're winning this war. The president keeps saying,
well, the war's over
completely
now.
Annihilated. The war is not over. And yet the American people see how we're losing at the pump and with their costs, and yet this thing still hasn't been resolved. Every day he tweets out, oh, we've obliterated them, we've annihilated them, they're going to surrender. But yet we still find ourselves spending billions of dollars a week
Senator
on
Booker,
a war abroad.
You've gone way over. And
It would be nice if we had hearings where people
Thank
had to
you,
be held
Senator
accountable.
Booker. Senator Scott.
All right.
Let's get more of this. This is good.
I think it's really important.
Ooh. Representing CT? Guys, I'm not a Democrat. Please, guys, I'm not a Democrat. But Chris Murphy is obviously a Democratic senator out of the state of Connecticut. So we'll see what he said. This is today, right?
For us to understand what your bottom lines are, what you're asking for in this negotiation, what commitments you need Iran to make in order for you to release the blockade, and we hope for them to release the blockade as well. So give us a little insight into what your bottom lines are, what is going to get the Strait reopened, because this is kind of the only question that matters for American consumers right now. And every day we get wildly different signals from the president as to whether he even is engaged in this question as to whether the Strait is going to reopen.
Yeah, I think you're...
And people say, Riyadh, you try to fight with the left all the time. You're too much of a deunifier. What's the word? I don't know. I can't find the word right now. You're causing all this chaos. It's like, bro, I'm literally glazing Chris Murphy right now. Like, what are you talking about?
Question gets right to the heart of the matter. So I think it's a good question. Let me first bifurcate two things. The only reason there's a blockade, the only reason why there's a U.S. blockade is because Iran has closed they're firing on commercial ships, and they've mined large segments of Hormuz, international waters. And so the blockade is only against Iranian ships. And it's very simple. The notion is if no one's ships are...
By the way, there have been reports earlier last month that like 34 Iranian vessels still got through the blockade anyways. Who knows how true that is, but it's just food for thought.
They're going to get out. Then Iran's ships aren't going to get out either. We can't live in a world in which they get to close the straits and tell everybody, pay us a toll or we'll blow you up, but their ships get to go out unfettered. So that's the reason why there's a blockade. There wouldn't have been a blockade if Iran had agreed to do what they said they would do when the ceasefire kicked in, which is they were going to open the straits. So let me just focus on the straits for a moment. Number one, what they're doing is unlawful and illegal. There isn't a country on earth other than Iran and maybe Oman that flirts.
Bombing them out of nowhere was totally lawful and legal though, right? I mean, it takes two to tango.
With it, who's in favor of what Iran is doing in the Straits. The Chinese are against it. The Russians are against it. Everyone is against it. The whole world is against it. So condition number one is...
Hey, okay. Just casually skipping over the fact that those same countries and a large majority of the world also condemned the U.S.-Israeli joint strikes on February 28th against Iran, too. You going to talk about that?
They have to reopen the Straits. And reopening the Straits means the following.
And look, what do I want? I want Iran to open the Strait. But I understand that's not going to happen magically by itself. We have to promise not to attack them again. We have to release some of their frozen assets. We've lost a lot of our bragging rights. We lost a lot of our ability to make maximalist demands by attacking them for no reason on February 28th just because Benjamin Netanyahu begged us to do so. So we don't have the same right to ask them for the same large demands that we previously did. So we're going to have to bend the knee just a little bit. And that's for the greater good of the global economy, and that's for future relations in the Middle East to not be shattered, especially with the Gulf, which have already denied us access during our military operation, that being Operation Freedom. Kuwait and Saudi Arabia said, nope, can't use our airspace, can't use our air bases, don't care. And why do you think they did that? Because they didn't want to be subject to Iranian strikes by supporting the United States and interfering with the Strait of Hormuz blockade. So it's like these are the things that we just love to casually skip over.
Ships can sail through international waters the way they can do through other choke points around the world without being fired upon, without...
Quick super chat break. I think I just got to chat in. One moment. YouTube Studios always frozen and glitching, bro. Mr. Clapcheek says, free Diddy, abolish the Mann Act. Okay, thanks for the super chat. Hegseth violated the Hatch Act by... Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Isn't that a thing? He's not allowed to go and campaign against him or show any endorsement. He's under the Trump cabinet. Hegseth violated the Hatch Act by campaigning against Massey. If a military member did that, they would be court-martialed and separated immediately. It's so true, man. And yo, like, I don't mean to sound like a wussy-dussy, okay? But like, you know, Trump is pretty corrupt, bro. Like the insider trading, I've been talking about this. Who the hell says buy a Dell computer? All right. Like, what are we doing, bro? Come on. Like, $500,000 pumped into Dell, and then like 4 days later he goes, I recommend everybody go buy a Dell computer. It's like, first of all, no. Second of all, like, bro, you're corrupt. You got niggas on Polymarket betting that Nicolas Maduro will be taken out of power in 10 seconds on exactly the date and time that it happened. It's like, all right, Mr. President, what are we doing? So Baron Trump making all the right trades. No, I'm kidding. I don't know if any of that's really confirmed. Some of that is confirmed, but, you know.
Without paying a toll. That's condition number one.
But the Strait is closed because of our decision to invade Iran. This is a consequence of our military action. So I guess I'm not interested in litigating that question. We all know why the Strait is closed, because you took military action against Iran, and we knew ahead of time that that would be their likely response. The question is...
Hey, Chris, good point. Let me supplement that. Iran is also not nearly as capable as the United States when it comes to their military, obviously. So are they going to fight us back in what I will admit is a war of attrition? Are they going to fight us back like that for months and months and months? Or are they going to say, you know what, let's block this body of water and make it economically painful for the United States? This is asymmetric warfare. This is like the Bin Laden playbook, by the way. Like when we invaded in 2003, Bin Laden was salivating over it because he wanted to make it an economic disaster for the United States so he could highlight how the Israeli lobby controls the U.S. government. That was his main goal. Do you know that? Did you know that? That was his long-term goal. He wrote a letter to America saying that it was declassified a few years ago, but just looking at the war on terror, Bin Laden and the Soviet Union against the Soviet Union by CIA funded and the CIA backed groups in the 80s, going into the 90s, looking at how he was upset about the right of self-determination in the Middle East. Bin Laden's long-term goal was, I want to expose the Zionist control inside of the United States. No better way to do it than to provoke them and drag them into a forever war in Iraq, because it's not going to be a 3 or 4 day conflict. And that's exactly what it was. So we're falling for the same trick. That's why I say the parallels to the Iraq war are there in some way. They're there in some way because what does the Iranian regime say online? They say, look, America, your country can't make its own decisions. Look, Donald Trump is controlled. He's on a leash, and Netanyahu's the one walking him. That's what Iran says. That's the propaganda they push out in their media. That's their goal. They're like almost in a way having fun with this. It's becoming incredibly obvious. If somebody was stupid and dumb and blind and autistic, they aren't now, they still can accept, or even those people have now come to the truth that, wow, this war seems to really serve nobody else but Israel. Even Matt Walsh is not for this war. I mean, all of the people who avoid talking about Zionism have now had to come out and say this war is a bad idea. So, Iran is using what is at access for them, what is the only thing they can use, which is the Strait of Hormuz. They're going to blockade the Strait of Hormuz. They know how painful that's going to be for the United States. And it's worked. It's worked because we stopped the war. They hit the Gulf countries, and no one likes that. I don't want to see the Gulf countries get hit. Hey, look, I don't like Dubai, but I don't want them to get struck by missiles all the time. Dubai destroyed my home country, Sudan, but I'm not evil like them. I don't want them to suffer the same consequence because the people are separate from the government. I don't want people in Dubai to suffer from Iranian strikes. I don't want people in Saudi Arabia to suffer from Iranian strikes. That's not what I want. But like, what other choice does Iran have here? What, are they going to stand up straight and box with the United States? That's not going to work. And by the way, U.S. intelligence knew that. Secretary of War likely knew that. Still started the war anyways. So,
how are we going to get it reopened? Are you going to drive a bargain that is so tough and so hard that the strait remains closed? So how are we going to get it open?
The first thing, that is a predicate to anything else happening. The straits have to be reopened. So the way to think about it is this. If Iran wants to be able to move its oil again through the strait, they will have to reopen the straits. If they refuse to do so, then we have other options available to us, but we would prefer to negotiate the opening of this, which
so
means
tell us about the negotiations. What do you need from them in order to get the strait?
He also completely avoided the question that the senator originally asked, or really the point that he imposed, which was you started the war, so that's why they did that.
Strait reopened. We need the strait reopened tomorrow.
Well, what?
Red Pill Clipper, member for 2 months, bro. Shout out to you, man. He says W Riyadh, WU. Thank you for the support.
What needs to happen is very simple. They need to announce that they will no longer fire on commercial ships that are going through or threaten to fire on ships, because in many cases, ships just won't move. They won't go, not because they got fired on, but because of the risk of being fired upon. And so they have to announce very clearly, the straits are now open. We're not charging a toll. We will help remove the mines that they put in there, and they will not fire on ships.
But the president says they also need to make commitments on their nuclear program. That's what I'm asking.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
What commitments do they need to make in order for the strait to be reopened?
Well, the second thing they have to agree to as part of this is, so in addition to the straits, that's the predicate that opens the door to phase two. Phase two is they have to commit to very specific negotiations on highly enriched, the disposition of the highly enriched uranium that still is buried deep in a mountain somewhere. They have to agree on negotiating severe and long-term limitations and or cancellation of enrichment activity in their country.
In the second phase of negotiations.
Well, obviously, these are highly technical matters, so I don't think you could work those out in 5 days. That would require a team of experts to meet over a 30, 60, 90-day period and work out the details. But they have to commit.
Yeah, but the groundwork isn't there. That's the problem. Okay, you got experts. You send your delegation out. You send J.D. Vance out. What the fuck, nigga? What's J.D. Vance about to do? You send this expert team out. Expert negotiators. Bro, the framework is cooked. Okay? The groundwork is not there. Iran is saying they are not about to just downblend. They're not about to just give up all their enriched uranium. They're not going to get rid of their centrifuges. They're not going to bring them above ground so you could bomb the shit out of them a month later and stab them in the back. Like, they need a guarantee to no continued strikes. They will pause probably their 60%. Remember the proposal we looked at? And how many proposals have we looked at? But one of the proposals in the middle of the ceasefire, towards the end of April, kind of the beginning of May, had highlighted Iran was saying they had paused their 60% enriched uranium for a long duration of time, a few years. I think it was like 10 or 15 years. So not a few years, actually, a long time. And after that, if the United States honored not attacking them, they would downblend. So if we're asking for them to completely get rid of the enriched uranium or bring it down to 3.67%, no ifs and buts, just that's it. And they're saying we're not going to do that until you guys can display you won't attack us for a certain amount of time. It's like there's no groundwork. We're telling them you got to open up the Strait. They're saying you got to open up the naval blockade. There's no groundwork. You could talk to them for years. We're not on the same page at all. There has to be some sort of congruency. There has to be some sort of parallel there. There's nothing.
To their willingness to do that. For example, they have to commit to say, we will dispose of the enriched uranium. And the question now is, what are the mechanisms by which we do so? That can be negotiated.
Final question. In order to get to that second phase, are you willing to release sanctions or release frozen money that the United States is withholding from Iran?
Right now, everything that's been discussed with them.
This is what you do. This is what you do. First of all, you control Israel. You tell Bibi Netanyahu, stop attacking Lebanon. Get Bibi Netanyahu to promise he will stop attacking Lebanon. Once that is done, and we're sure about it after we've seen peace for a couple weeks, you release a naval blockade. You release the naval blockade because you don't just let go of all of your assets or points of leverage at the same time. You do it slowly, one by one. So you tell Benjamin Netanyahu, no more war in Lebanon. You control him. Once you control him, you release the naval blockade. At that point, the ball is in Iran's court, and it's on them to release the Strait of Hormuz. If they don't do it, then they're the ones who are liable for actually blocking the Strait. But it all starts with Israel. It all starts with Israel. Right? But we do need to release that naval blockade because we did that after the blockade. And the only reason they did that is because we're not being or actually operating in good faith. So, and it's copium. You know, it's copium. Obviously, them blocking the Strait hurts us. We're trying to act like it doesn't. All right, then why are we blocking it?
Is that any sanctions relief. Now remember, sanctions come, there's international sanctions, there's congressional sanctions, there's executive sanctions. So some we can release and some we cannot. But any sanctions relief is condition-based, which means it has to be in return for the reason why those sanctions were put in place in the first place, which is their nuclear program. So yeah, look, Iran is being sanctioned because they enrich uranium. Iran is being sanctioned because they've highly enriched uranium. Iran is being sanctioned because of their nuclear activities.
No, Iran is being sanctioned because certain people lobbied for Trump to win in 2016 and he pulled out of the JCPOA, and that's when the sanctions started. Then we killed all of their military leadership and now we're at war with them. That's why they're sanctioned, because Israel doesn't like them to have power in the Middle East.
If they agree to give up those things, there will be sanctions relief.
They're not sanctioned for nukes that can't even reach the United States. They don't have intercontinental missiles. All of their missiles are mid-range.
Associated with their commitment and compliance with those agreements.
It's like taking candy from a baby listening to this stuff. It's all the same. It's all the same garbage slop buffoonery. But the Strait of Hormuz, the Strait. Like, braza. You are not getting it, braza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Rubio, I trust you're familiar with...
Let's do a little more. We'll do one more, because this is good, guys. What do you think? This is good. Rubio is just getting... I mean, I could react to a Rubio baking session all day long.
Then CENTCOM commander and...
And by the way, in the Discord channel, I see you guys sent some clips for me to react to. I just want to say, like, I'm not going to react to anything drama related, guys. So don't bother sending it. I'm not going to react to anything drama related. I'm going to try to not be involved in that. Obviously, that has nothing to do with me. So we keep it drama free over here as much as we possibly can. But I see some clips in here. We may not have time. I know I got to get around to reacting to these. But yeah, all right, let's get back to the...
Secretary of Defense Jim Mathis's famous quote about the importance of funding our foreign policy apparatus. In 2013, in response to a question from the now chairman of SASC, General Mattis pointed out that if you don't find, and I quote him, if you don't fund the State Department fully, then I need to buy more ammunition ultimately.
I have a quick question for the chat. I don't mean to pause the show. We have decent viewership in here. I need you all, if you're listening, to try and pull out your phone. Unless you're driving, don't pull out your phone. And tell me in the chat, I'm going to do a poll. Did you find my channel via my brother, or did you find me organically? Okay? I'm going to set up a poll right now as we continue to listen to this. Out about me. Okay. Just something I want to see here. I'm assuming most of you are going to say Myron. I would imagine an overwhelming majority, but just something that I'm trying to see. And I'll explain that, maybe not now, but at some point. Riyadh, I got news for you. You're banned from the UK. Bro, but goodbye. I don't care. UK banned me, I would literally lose no sleep. Would never have interest in going there. Anyways. Someone said nepotism for sure. Yeah. No, 100%. Okay. I like you more than Myron. That's fine. Okay, you don't have to spam it. Okay. Organically, when Myron was on the stream, which was recognizable. Okay. Because somebody came up to me at UCLA and was like, yo, I saw a clip of you and I found out about your brother. That's how I'm at this debate now. And I was like, is this a thing? I was like, are you guys finding me organically? Really? No. Okay. Just curious. I would imagine. I think it's like 90% Myron. 94%. Okay. Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. I just needed a gauge on that. Let's get back to this.
End quote. Unfortunately, despite his service in the first Trump administration, the second time around, you seem to have taken the message as a blueprint rather than as a warning. The budget that you're presenting today cuts the State Department by about a third, after you previously tried to enact steep cuts and eliminations last year, many of which were already rebuked by Congress on a bipartisan basis. Time and again, this administration uses our military as a first tool of choice, manufacturing new crises and new conflicts that worsen the situation for folks abroad as well as for American people back here at home. And now you're here to justify a budget request that further undermines our diplomatic apparatus, the tools and professionals that are critical for not only preventing crises before they begin, but those who will be responsible for negotiating our way out of Trump's war of choice in Iran and whatever other nightmares he dreams up with. So
someone said Myron should do a poll. Did you find me through Riyadh? Bro, no one found him through me. But very little. Very little. Yeah, okay. Why did you place me last, bro? What do you mean? Place you last where? Respectfully, nobody found you organically. It's all from Myron. Yeah. No, I know that. Trust me, I know. I just want to check because here's the thing. You guys, this is why I'm asking this. I'll just explain it. Sometimes I check like the comments of my videos, comments on my streams, replies to my tweets, whatever, and I'm like, do you even know like where my stance is? Like, are you even familiar with like the movement? Like, you know what I mean? So like I'm confused, you know. I'm like, is this organic? That's why I ask. Because I'm like, where are you coming from? Like, people are complaining. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, the Hasan Piker thing. I'm going, too bad for Hasan Piker. You know, it is what it is. We don't parade censoring people, so that sucks, and that's a bad sign for us. But, like, Hasan Piker hates my brother. And then people were like, Berea. And I'm like, are these people organic, or are these Myron's fans as well? You know, it just kind of just makes me curious. That's why. But no. I know. All right. Save it, okay? I get it. I'm a Nepo baby. God damn. Cut me some slack. No, I'm kidding. Love all of you guys. Obviously, I'm the product of nepotism. No secret there. But hopefully you guys enjoy the show regardless. That's what matters to me, right? You find the show. Obviously, you found the show because of this, right? You know I'm Myron's brother. But it seems like a lot of you stick around because you enjoy the content. You enjoy everything. Maybe you learn something. It's entertaining. You listen to it while you're cleaning. You shouldn't be cleaning. Your girl should be cleaning. That's a joke. I'm kidding. But you find it entertaining, and that's what matters. So, especially when Myron's not here, I can provide some coverage. So, that's what matters to me. So, shout out to all you guys.
based on how this administration has conducted itself over the last year, our adversaries are learning that the United States is not a reliable negotiator. They're learning that we will quickly turn to using force before working to alleviate crisis points and prevent war. I'm very concerned that in turn increases the risk of our adversaries jumping to use force first, increasing risk to American citizens and American interests around the world. We saw that instinct for the military option in the Caribbean and in Venezuela. And now we're seeing threats of it in Cuba while we're still engaged in the Middle East, where President Trump is blowing a shocking amount of money and failing to uphold his solemn duty to put our service members at risk only for the most serious and imminent national security threats to American people.
Lady, get on with the question. God damn. Okay, war in Iran bad. I don't mean to be a slop, but like, god damn, bro.
Spent more on Trump's war in Iran than you are requesting today for this entire State Department budget request?
Yeah, I can't speak to the Department of War. Would have to speak to you about the money and what they calculate.
She just cooked him.
For the costs. I can't give you an accurate answer on that because that's not the thing that I look at.
I would think you would have some insight because you are on national security.
Well, I've seen the testimony that Secretary Hegseth and others have conducted in front of their oversight committees, but I just can't. I don't want to give you an answer that's not accurate.
Okay.
So.
He knows.
Well, this week, let me put out some numbers that I have. This week, the cost of President Trump's illegal war choice against Iran are likely to balloon past $35 billion by the rate from DOD's own May calculations and surpass your FY 2027 budget request of $35.1 billion for the State Department and related programs. That's an astonishing figure. Worth repeating, in just 14 weeks, President Trump will have blown through as much, if not more money in Iran than he thinks Congress should spend on U.S. diplomacy for the entirety of the next fiscal year.
Brutal. Talk about America first, right?
This administration's distorted priorities have unfortunately revealed some stark lessons for our allies and partners as well. The United States' use of force first will make them less secure as they'll be caught in the crossfire, left scrambling to protect themselves and their people.
Also, Taiwan, first island chain, munitions cut in half.
Secretary, do you agree that under Operation Epic Fury, our allies and partners in the region have expressed concern about their security and the threats that followed from this administration's uncoordinated actions?
No, I think our allies in the region have been very cooperative, some obviously very aggressively cooperative, like the UAE as an example. Kuwait's been fantastic. Obviously, no country likes to have their oil and their energy infrastructure hit, but I think it's a reminder to them of the threat that Iran poses. And the one lesson when this is all said...
That's so fucked up to say. That is so messed up to say. Let me stop cursing because my mom told me stop cursing on the show. I'm getting better. That's so messed up to say. Listen to this again.
Cooperative like the
allies and partners from this administration's uncoordinated
Listen to his answer.
actions.
Pay attention.
No, I think our allies in the region have been very cooperative, some obviously very aggressively cooperative, like the UAE as an example. Kuwait's been fantastic. Obviously, no country likes to have their oil and their energy infrastructure hit, but I think it's a reminder to them of the threat that Iran poses. And the one lesson when this is all said and done is it's reminded them of, despite all the friendly talk that you've seen in the past, how dangerous Iran is to their own interests, how the
it's like, that's gross. That's really hitting low. That is hitting below the crotch. Like, the reason, and I know I'm being Captain Obvious here, hey, you ever think the reason why the Gulf countries were attacked is because you attacked Iran and your bases are in the Gulf countries? They're not killing civilians in the Gulf countries. They're hitting your military infrastructure that you put in those countries and plant on the basis of protection, which it is not doing. It is not offering that protection, in which that's why it exists, for that very reason. And then so you say, well, now I'm happy that all the Gulf allies can see they are neighboring against this crazy terroristic regime. It's like, no, actually, the regime never bothered them, ever threatened them, ever struck them until you forced them to do so because you were trying to eradicate their regime, send them back to the Stone Age, and hit their power plants and energy infrastructure. So, realistically, is it the fact that they've woken up to Iran being a terroristic entity? Maybe there's some semblance of that. But really what they know is that the United States is controlled by Israel, and so long as that happens, they are going to fight Iran. So long as they fight Iran, their bases exist on our soil, and we will be subject to military attack. So, yeah, we may have to lock arms with the United States for the greater good of our desalination plants not getting hit, even though ultimately it goes against our interests, our hands are tied behind our back. That's what it really is. That's the situation unfolded in the Middle East. But he says, no, the Gulf countries see that Iran is a terrorist regime. Yeah, I'm sure they weren't happy that Iran struck them, but I'm sure they were even more pissed that you provoked Iran to strike them. So, say what you will, but it's really nasty to say that when these are supposed to be our allies. We put them in a position of jeopardy. We put them in a very bad position by striking Iran. And by the way, my brother and I predicted this all the way back from February and January. We said it would be a regional conflict and Iran would go straight for the UAE because the UAE and Israel have a very close alliance, a security axis, if you will. And if they've had it for years. Ever since they disenfranchised with Saudi Arabia in what I believe was 2021, after they fractured off in supporting different groups in southern Yemen, the UAE has become an even closer ally of Israel. Saudi Arabia has been fighting for influence in the Middle East, so has the UAE. And the UAE has pretty much joined Israel. Saudi Arabia is kind of its own entity that has been reluctant to join the Abraham Accords until there's recognition of a Palestinian state. And so we knew that Iran was going to target the UAE before anybody. Because that's the closest you can hit home to Israel itself. You know, and you say the UAE has been closely aligned with us because the UAE is Israel. They're a Zionist state. They're a shadow Zionist state. You know? And I'm revoking my right to probably ever visit by saying these things. It's too bad. Oh well, I'm not going to lie.
Millions of dollars Iran has spent. Despite sanctions, Iran found the money to build drones and rockets. Okay. And luckily, we've taken a lot of them out, but they still have some, and they still have the ability to
My question is about
some. They got a whole lot, buddy. They don't got some. They got a lot.
our allies in the region expressing concerns because, you see, public reporting in early May revealed that Saudi Arabia denied U.S. basing an overflight related to Trump's ill-conceived plan to escort ships through the Straits of Hormuz, and they're still not.
Oh, yeah, they did. Saudi Arabia and Kuwait told Donald Trump, per Operation Freedom, they can't use his own airbase on their soil or their airspace to help in the operation. Get this. This was really juicy. I loved when this happened. This was like so tasty. Hold on. Saudi Arabia airspace. Operation Freedom. Typing like a boomer right now. Freedom. It's so yummy. It's like, look at this. Trump's abrupt U-turn on a plan to reopen the Strait of Hormuz came after backlash from allies. Get a load of this. Get a load of this. So this here reads, Trump surprised Gulf allies by announcing Project Freedom on social media Sunday afternoon, the official said, angering leadership in Saudi Arabia in response. Remember, this was May 6th, so about a month ago. In response, the kingdom informed the U.S. it would not allow the U.S. military to fly aircraft from Prince Sultan Air Base southeast of Riyadh or fly through Saudi airspace to support the effort, the official said. A call between Trump and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman did not resolve the issue, the two U.S. officials said, forcing the president to pause Project Freedom in order to restore U.S. military access to the critical airspace. Would you look at that? And by the way, that's the same airbase that got hit during the midst of the Iran war around March, and they destroyed our AWACS systems, which are critical radar systems that hover the air in the Middle East, giving us more intel than we would have had prior. And Iran had hit Prince Sultan Air Base, which is about 2 hours southeast of Riyadh, the capital. And they're hitting that close to home, hitting that close to the capital of Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, which is, by the way, a hub for tourism. They make a lot of money on that city. You have Mecca and Medina. They obviously are custodians of the holy mosques. That is way westward of Saudi Arabia, closer to the Red Sea. But then you obviously have Riyadh, which is eastward, much closer to the Persian Gulf, much closer to Iran. And just a little bit southeast of that, I think about a 2-hour drive, is Prince Sultan Air Base, which got hit by Iranian missiles and drones. And as a result, destroyed tons of critical U.S. military infrastructure that was already running low. And so now Donald Trump is saying, we're going to use that same air base and guide ships out of the Strait of Hormuz in Operation Freedom. All of these naval carriers and stuff will guide the oil vessels out. Don't worry, we're going to come in and save the day. Kuwait and Saudi Arabia said, no, you're not, because if you use the air bases on our land to do that, Iran is going to bomb us to shit like they've been doing since the beginning of March. And what happened? We had to pull out of the deal. That right there, real time, is the United States losing influence in our ability to flex our muscles in the Middle East and use these countries in the Gulf as buffer states. Right in front of you, it's unfolding. Small but very significant developments that are foretelling of a different multipolar future in the Middle East. So, it's juicy stuff there.
Not supportive of this risky tanker escort plan, and the Strait is still worse off today than it was before Trump initiated this war. And that doesn't even touch on the wider global lessons being learned by our allies and partners.
Yeah, we don't face
any from the Shangri-La dialogue, where I heard from folks across the Indo-Pacific and especially in South.
Sorry, I got some super chats here. My bad. Cam 2 times says, yo, I was actually surprised there were so many supporters at UCLA. I hope y'all come close to the DMV. I already met Myron. It'll be cool to meet you, bro. I'm only 2 or 3 years older than you. Yeah, shout out to you, bro. I would love to meet you one day. And yeah, lots of support at UCLA, man. Everybody was actually a fan or came in peace, so it was really cool. Bad Goy says, my first super chat ever. Keep up the good work, Echi. Myron Ballin, he don't need my super chat. Here to watch the channel and grow, inshallah. W Riyadh. Hey, thank you so much, bro. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate the super chat, man. The support means a lot. But yeah, and then somebody in the chat earlier, I saw, somebody said, Riyadh, how do you know that they built up on their missiles? Well, look at this. This is out of the New York Times, and this came out of several other news outlets. Iran still fields about 70% of its mobile launchers across the country and still has retained roughly 70% of its pre-war missile stockpile, according to the assessments by U.S. intelligence. That stockpile encompasses both ballistic missiles, which can target other nations in the region, and a smaller supply of cruise missiles, which can be used against shorter-range targets on land, air, or sea. Military intelligence agencies have also reported, based on information from multiple collection streams, including satellite imagery and other surveillance technologies, that Iran regained access to roughly 90% of its underground missile storage and launch facilities nationwide, which are now assessed to be partially or fully operational. Mind you, this article was a month ago. The people with knowledge of the assessment said, the findings undercut months of public assurances from President Trump, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and Marco Rubio, who have told Americans that the Iranian military was decimated and no longer a threat. So, contradiction there. Trump said Mr. Hegseth declared at a Pentagon news conference on April 8th that Operation Epic Fury in the joint U.S.-Israel campaign launched on February 28th had decimated Iran's military and rendered it combat ineffective for years to come. And by the way, what Iran is saying is, no, it's not 75%. It's actually 120. So, I mean, take from that what you will.
Southeast Asia, who are being hit hard by the same rising energy costs that are devastating American communities. And frankly, this administration insists on using military force as a first resort instead of a last resort, no matter the deadly cost of self-defeating impacts. Your budget request here would sadly perpetuate that trend and undermine the roles and responsibilities that you should be fulfilling as Secretary of State. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Okay, I didn't get to answer any of that.
Someone in the chat says, bro, you're just preparing news reports that haven't been liable in years, LMAO. I think you meant reliable. Okay. The copium is crazy. So, you know, I don't believe everything I just read in the news necessarily, but when it's lining up with what I see happening on the ground real time, Donald Trump hesitating to strike Iran again, even though he was super comfortable about 2 or 3 months ago doing it, well, then that tells me, yeah, maybe Iran has a lot more weapons than we thought they would have at this point in time after the buffer period we gave them to replenish their missile systems. Also, they spend a lot on their military. That's where a lot of their money goes. They sell oil to China. They get a lot of money from it. China benefits because they get it for cheap because of their inflation, because of the sanctions that we put on them. And Iran just funds their missiles program. Iran funds their drones program. They have some of the ballistic missiles program that are the best in the region. And their drones program is also very formidable. It's very good. Several other countries model their drones after the Iranian drone program, even the U.S. in some capacity. So I'm not just speaking from whims and desires. I'm speaking from everything that's kind of confirming the reports I'm already seeing on the ground. And it's also, this is U.S. intelligence. This is the New York Times. This is not like, you know, some bullshit news reports. Washington Post said this. New York Post said this. Fox suggested it at some point. CNN has said this. You know. So.
Response. Question.
Well, she didn't answer the question. She doesn't want me to answer? Can I answer anyway?
You may.
Okay. Well, but she made a bunch of points. I get to answer them, right? First of all, I don't understand this thing with let me tell you, we were just here, maybe you weren't here, we were just talking about it. We did a peace deal with Azerbaijan and Armenia. We just signed the TRIP agreement yesterday, actually, or last week we signed it. Last night I officialized it. That was diplomacy.
Are we dead ass? All right, not to be a dickhead here, be uncharitable. Who cares, bro? Really? You start a war in Iran and then you say, but Azerbaijan and Armenia.
Administration is still blown through more
when do I
money
get
in
to talk
14
to you?
weeks.
Do I get to talk to this
entire
No, you don't get to talk. No, actually.
budget that you're
Senator Duckworth,
requesting.
Senator Duckworth, I'm going to let Senator Rubio reply to the statements that you made at his request.
Yeah, that's.
But we've got a hard stop at 12:30.
Okay, but I know, but she said a lot of stuff. I get to answer some of it. All right. So the first is the second is India-Pakistan. We ended that war. We were involved in helping broker that. Thailand, Cambodia. That's diplomacy. We've been very engaged in fact, as I sit here now speaking to you, I've got the Lebanese government and the Israeli government meeting at the State Department starting at 8:30 this morning for the fourth time after engaging last week at the military level.
That's embarrassing. That's not a flex. They've had to meet 4 times since the war started for some sort of peace, and Israel keeps breaking the peace deal. What are you talking about? This just displays you can't control Israel. You're the United States. The president of the United States should be able to only have to tell a country once to stop its military campaign, and that should be it. That's it. Done. Full stop. There should be no further conversation. You got to yell at Bibi Netanyahu, beg him on the phone to stop because the Strait needs to be opened up, even though you're saying it doesn't. We got no control over shit.
So we're carrying out now. We're carrying out.
You're attempting diplomacy, but it's not working because you cannot control Israel.
Diplomacy all over the world constantly and very successfully in many cases. Now, let me make one more point that you raise about the budget request. Guys, we understand how this process works, okay? You guys understand. I know because I've been involved all the time. We OMB produces sort of timelines for every agency. We put forward a budget. We say, this is the money we've been allocated. This is how we would spend it. There is a congressional process, which I'm sure you're aware of. And in my time here, 16 years that I was here, I don't ever recall us once ever taking the president's budget and passing it into law. I'm not walking away from
Yo, he does have very large ears.
From the budget. We can make it work if that's the budget you give us. But I have a sense, I have a suspicion, right, Senator Schatz, that we're going to have to work with you guys, that we're going to have to, well, you know, that we're going to have to work with you guys on a budget request that meets your priorities and ours. That's how it works. You guys are the appropriators. We have to work within we will tell you what we care about. We will tell you how we're going to spend the money. But ultimately, you will provide us a spending bill, and we will work through those parameters. But we have given you what we can live with. We can make it work. But if you want to, you know, if you're obviously going to have changes here in Congress. But this stuff about diplomacy and the money spent on the war, diplomacy's always costs less money. We don't buy missiles. We don't buy rockets. We don't buy large airplanes and aircraft carriers. But we've been very effective. And I can give you list after list of places where we have had an impact in either de-escalating crisis before it started or ending active wars. And I'm very proud of the work that we've done in that regard.
Yeah, even if there was truth to that, let's just say that's true. Grant him that fact. Doesn't negate starting a war in Iran was a huge mistake.
Some of which haven't even been publicly discussed in some cases because they weren't high profile. And my last point.
And you destroyed diplomacy with Iran by tarnishing the JCPOA, which would have been significantly cheaper than bombing them for several months and spending billions of dollars and increasing gas prices across the United States.
We remain heavily
and choking Asia and Europe into an eventual oil shortage.
Engaged in areas that may be not at the core of our national interests, but nonetheless are related to our national interests. You think about Sudan for a moment and the Quad. This has been a very frustrating situation to put together, but we helped convene a donor conference that got pledges for when that is.
Yeah, but the issue in Sudan is difficult for you guys to resolve, even though Trump doesn't seem to be worried about that until Mohammed bin Salman a few months ago actually reminded him to worry about the issue in Sudan because obviously the UAE is all over it, supporting the RSF. So it's like we got to call out who's liable here. We got to call out the guilty parties. We have war in Iran because Israel can't stop bombing Lebanon. It's persisting in Iran, rather, I should say, because we can't stop bombing Lebanon, or Israel can't stop bombing Lebanon. And then the war in Sudan rages on, and it kind of gets better than it gets back. It gets better than it regresses, and it's because the UAE is relentless.
is resolved. We've put a lot of time and energy in a situation that right now, unfortunately, has turned into a proxy in the Middle East because of the UAE and the Saudis on opposite sides of it. In Libya, where our work in Libya now it's still divided, but they, for the first time ever, have a joint budget. For the first time ever, are cooperating on energy deals that are going to be beneficial to the people of Libya. So I just don't think it's fair to say we're not actively involved in diplomacy on last year's budget and spending, because we are, and we have been, and to great success.
Thank you.
Support journalism.
Yeah, so tons of copium. But anyways, yeah, so Rubio, Hasan Piker, Cenk Uygur, the Iranian conflict. That's pretty much it for a lot of the news that came out the last day and today. So, love all of you guys. I have to be up in approximately 7 hours. And so I apologize, but I always try to keep the streams around 2 or 3 hours anyways, so you guys know how it is at this point. Love all of you. Please, before you leave, check out the Instagram. I'm trying to get the meta page up. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? So take a look at the Instagram clips page right here. That's Riyadh Pilled. And we're pumping out clips. A little bit of a pause, but we're about to start really aggressively ramping out clips. We're cooking behind the scenes, baby. So stay locked in. And this is my personal Instagram. I'm going to start giving updates on here as well as to when I'm going to stream and stuff. I just kind of have to pick and choose and be careful. You know, still got a job and stuff. But this is my personal Instagram. You know, fly nigga shit. Fly nigga shit. Tel Aviv impressed. You know, so. Anyways, yeah, follow me on Meta. Join the Discord. Follow the clips page. That's what matters the most. And yeah, that's really it for announcements. My brother will be on Tim Pool tomorrow. I will probably be reacting to it. If not, you can just watch it. It'll be good. I'm not sure what the topics will be, but I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's make sure I don't have any chats before I close out. All right. Perfect. Love all of you guys. Someone says, who is that handsome devil? I know, right? I'm looking good. Yo, you guys think I'm handsome? I'm kind of looks maxing. And on the, yo, bro, we spoke about this. Hold on. The stream's not over. Stay right there. We were talking about this, me and my brother. Like, obviously, clout is the main driver of success with girls and stuff. But who cares about that, bro? If you care about your looks, I'm really not like that good looking of a guy, but like if you care about your looks, if you maximize your looks as much as you possibly can, whiten your teeth, get good haircuts, try to take care of your skin, people treat you better. You know, clean cut, you dress well, people treat you better in your life. So if you haven't already, upgrade the wardrobe. I know my brother does not like to really care about how he dresses. He doesn't care about any of that. He is a very clean person. He brushes his teeth like 10 times a day and shit, showers like 4 times a day, but he doesn't really get fly. But, yo, invest in a nice wardrobe. And I think he gives the advice to do that, honestly. You know, he's a big pusher of looks maxing. So invest in the wardrobe, get some better clothes, lose a couple pounds. You could probably shave off some weight. You know, get hot, man. It's 2026. You can't be ugly in the big 26. But anyways, love you guys. I will catch you tomorrow. If not tomorrow, I'll be back on Thursday for sure. As long as nothing comes up. I'm always like, I'll be back as long as, but I should be back as long as. I'll see you on Thursday. Love all of you and have a great night. I'm going to go prep some chicken like a Matrix slave, and I'm going to pound Z-Squill and go to sleep. I'm actually going to take Z-Squill right now, and as I'm prepping the chicken, I'm hoping I'll get tired. Love all of you guys. Catch you on Thursday.